Good evening, councillors, officers and community members in attendance tonight. I also welcome any members of the public who are attending online or live streaming tonight's meeting. My name is Councillor Emily Demetriadis. I'm the Mayor of the City of Darebin and the Chairperson for tonight's council meeting. It is my pleasure to welcome you to tonight's council meeting. I declare this meeting open at 6:04 p.m. This meeting is being live streamed and a recording will be made available on the council website as soon as possible after the meeting. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, the traditional owners of this land. I recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture and pay my respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. I would also like to welcome and acknowledge all councillors, our executive team and officers joining us this evening. Tonight there are no apologies. Item 4 of the agenda is disclosure of conflicts of interest. If any councillor or relevant staff member has a conflict of interest in relation to a matter on the agenda tonight, they must disclose the conflict of interest and the nature of the conflict of interest. Any conflicts of interest must also be declared immediately prior to the item being considered. Councillors and officers, are there any conflicts of interest to declare?
Through you, Mayor, I have a material conflict of interest to declare in relation to the governance report this evening, which is item 9.8. There's an appointment being recommended to the role of the chair of the CEO Employment and Remuneration Advisory Committee, and therefore because that will consider my direct employment matters, I declare that conflict. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other conflicts of interest? If during the course of the meeting any motion or amendment is put that gives rise to a conflict of interest, I request that councillor advise me at the time. Moving on to the confirmation of minutes of previous meetings. Councillors, can I please have a mover for the adoption of the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 15th of December 2025 and the special council meeting held on the 22nd of December 2025 and the 10th of February 2026. Thank you. That's moved by Councillor Voglis. Is there a seconder? Councillor Villala, thank you. I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Next, we have item 6, which is Council's occupational health and safety responsibilities. So it's absolutely fantastic to see everyone here this evening. I would like to remind everyone that Council has an occupational health and safety responsibility to ensure anyone attending tonight's meeting, in person or online, feels both safe physically and emotionally. For members of the public who are in attendance tonight, we kindly ask you to be respectful of one another and to maintain a civil tone when addressing the meeting, and remind you that members of the gallery must remain silent at all times during a meeting unless you are invited to address the meeting. If anyone does engage in conduct that is improperly or disorderly, the chairperson can direct that person to cease their conduct and the person must comply with that direction. Item 7 is public question time. So we will now move on to public question time. We have allocated 30 minutes for public question time. If we do exceed that time, I will ask for a procedural motion to extend questions beyond 30 minutes. In line with Council's governance rules, questions cannot be taken from people in the gallery unless they were submitted by 12 o'clock today. You can ask a maximum of 3 questions and speak a total of 2 minutes. Please keep in mind to only ask your questions during this time and please refrain from making statements. Questions relating to notices of motions, petitions or urgent business cannot be accepted in accordance with the governance rules. For members of the public who have registered to ask a question in person, I will actually call your name when it's time, and once I call your name, if you do not respond, I will assume that you aren't present today, and one of our friendly officers will read the question on your behalf. The relevant general manager will then provide a response. For members of the public who are in attendance, either virtually or in person, I will invite you to come to the lectern just at the front or unmute your microphone if you're online, and you can state your name and ask your question as submitted. like questions will be grouped together, and the first person who submitted a like question may ask their question. Public questions. So we have a number of submitters here today for questions. First, we have Emma Curtis. Is Emma in the gallery today? No, I will ask Georgie to read the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Emma has 3 questions. The first question is, why has Club Links, who have the contract for Northcote Aquatic and Recreation Centre, been allowed to make a unilateral decision to close the only accessible creche available? Question 2, will Council intervene to prevent the removal of this vital service? And question 3, will Council release the contract Club Links has to manage NARC to the public to provide transparency about how much power Club Links has been given over this $63.5 million public facility?
And I'll ask Nina Cullen, the General Manager, to answer those questions. Thanks, Nina.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Emma, for your questions. I'll answer the first one first. Council works closely with Club Links as the operator of Northcote Aquatic and Recreation Centre. The decision to close the occasional care service was based on a comprehensive feasibility assessment, which included a cost-benefit analysis and benchmarking against other like facilities. There was very low usage of the NARC occasional care service, with an average of only 41% of available positions in sessions being used. Less than 1% of NARC's members were using the service. Benchmarking indicates that in recent times, 12 aquatic and leisure centres have withdrawn their occasional care services due to sustainability. We understand those who did use the service are disappointed in the closure, and this doesn't change the sustainability of the service. Council officers contacted nearby childcare services, and Only About Children in Victoria Road have shared that they have occasional care availability. Question 2. Childcare is a highly regulated industry with clear requirements on educator to children ratios based on the age of those in care. For occasional care services to continue, user fees would have needed to increase significantly. Unlike other childcare models, occasional care does not receive state or federal funding support. Club Links attempted to raise awareness of the service via social media and on-site promotion, and they have also offered a full refund for any active passes, as well as some free access options to assist with transition. Club Links are actively exploring alternative programs and class-based options that may be better able to support families into the future. Question 3. The contract for NARC has significant key performance measures to direct the work of Club Links. Many relate to activating opportunities for special interest groups, women, young people, and people at risk of discrimination or disadvantage. Club Links reports on the performance and how they are meeting those requirements, and results are provided annually to Council and they are made public. The 24-25 results were included in the 24 November 2025 Council meeting agenda. Officers actively manage the contract with Club Links through regular meetings, communication, assessments and report updates. The full contract is commercial in confidence, so we are not able to release this in full as a contract publicly.
Thank you, Nina. The next submitter is Scott Warren. Is Scott here to ask his question? I think Georgie's going to ask the questions on Scott's behalf.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Scott has 2 questions. 3 questions. The first question is, what is the status on the Reservoir Leisure Centre and its feasibility study, noting that it would be assumed feasibility studies have been completed previously? What is the purpose of another? The second question, what is the barrier to turning Wat Gambo into its intended finished state prior to 2050, noting that it is currently underutilised due to the lack of amenities despite having a small amount of play equipment for children? The surrounding areas are generally barren and not an enjoyable experience for persons or families. And the third question, does Darebin Council have any jurisdiction or influence on the state of the High Street car park at Ruthven Station and the surrounding areas as it's in very poor condition?
Nina, I believe you're answering the first question.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Scott, for the question. I'll answer the question on Reservoir Leisure Centre. Council completed the RLC, or the Reservoir Leisure Centre scoping study in 2025, which involved significant community consultation to better understand what our community would like to see in a redeveloped Reservoir Leisure Centre. The final Reservoir Leisure Centre scoping study report can be found on Council's website. Council is now preparing a business case to develop options using the scoping study findings. This is the next step in the redevelopment pathway and will help Council understand how best to proceed and support advocacy efforts.
Rachel Olivia will be answering the second question.
Thanks, Mayor, and thanks, Scott, for the question. So you asked about the 2020 master plan for Watgambo Reserve. So that's one of our newest parks, and the master plan set out a long-term vision for the site. So I think planned for sort of implementation over 30 years. The park's been established with a new playground, trees and gardens and paths. I do acknowledge it's a large space, so it feels like it could accommodate much more. That said, we do regard it as a good standard for a park serving a local community. You asked about the main challenge essentially for implementing that master plan over time through to 2050. And the main challenge, I think, will be funding. So since that master plan was established in 2020, construction costs across Victoria have gone well above construction price inflation, and we all know that that's been tough in itself. And what it means is council's funds don't go as far as they used to. Making improvements across Darebin will take longer than we thought it would, even as little as 5 years ago. And in the face of that challenge, council's carefully considering needs and priorities. It does this every year when it develops its budget and consults community about that. This year, some of the big priorities in council's capital program have been expanding kinder facilities, transport safety improvements, adding some more trees and updating some sports pavilions that have been at end of life.
Thank you. And Vanessa Petrie will be answering the third question.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, the car park and land surrounding Ruthven Station is the property of Vic Track. The land is in private ownership and council doesn't have jurisdiction over it.
Judy Dubus, are you available in the gallery to ask your questions? Nope. I might get Georgie.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, Judy has one question. I would like to know why there are no standing signs. There are no standing signs on the west side corner of David Street, leading from South Street and adjacent to the lane coming off David Street, leading to Comby Street.
Vanessa?
Thank you, Judy, for your question. And through you, Mayor, I understand a senior officer from the transport team called you today to discuss your concerns. A site visit is planned for later this week to determine whether no stopping signs are required at these locations, and we'll update you on the findings. To answer your questions, no stopping signs are not required at laneway entrances and road intersections. It is illegal to park within 10 metres of an intersection or across a vehicle crossing or a laneway. Sometimes no stopping signs are used near intersections to reinforce the 10-metre rule or to extend the area that cannot be parked in.
Thank you. Is Thomas Green available? I think we might get Georgie to ask the question.
Through you, Mayor, I'll ask and answer both. So Thomas's question is, many Darebin residents who support the Iranian community and stand in solidarity with the people of Iran expect council to make a public statement of support and raise the Iranian flag over Town Hall indefinitely, or until Iran is free from its oppressive regime. If council is unable or unwilling to take this action, could you please provide an explanation for this decision? So thank you through you, Mayor. Thanks, Thomas, for the question. Darebin is committed to standing in support with communities and nations experiencing injustices, particularly where we see it impact on our local community here in Darebin. There are different ways that council could consider demonstrating support. With regard to your question about raising a flag, this is something that council may consider when it deliberates on the new flag policy in the coming months.
The next submitter is Matthew Zammit. Is Matthew available to ask his questions? I might ask Georgie to read out the question.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Matthew has 2 questions. So the first question is in relation to a previous question submitted at the December 2025 meeting. I submitted questions to the December council meeting. I then received an email stating that my question did not comply with Darebin's governance rules. As the chairperson had determined that my questions were defamatory, indecent, abusive, offensive, irrelevant or objectionable in language and substance, as per the governance rules, it was later confirmed that the Mayor had not seen my questions, nor had made any determination such as that described in the email received. Could Council confirm that my questions were not in breach of the governance rules, and that the only breach of the governance rules was that an unelected official had claimed to me that an elected Mayor had made a determination about the questions?
Thank you. Jodie with the response.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And thanks, Matthew, for your question. We acknowledge that we made an error in relation to the application of the governance rules at that December council meeting and apologise for the mistake and acknowledge that you were able to ask your questions at that meeting. We've reviewed our process to ensure alignment with the governance rules, and thank you for bringing this to our attention.
And thank you, through you, Mayor. Matthew's second question is number 2. The Municipal Monitor's report ends with the words, "to restore the community trust in the council." In what ways do you feel this trust has broken down, and what actions will you undertake to restore this?
Jodie?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. As part of tonight's agenda, the governance report includes an action plan to respond to the Monitor's report. The plan includes a range of actions to respond to each of the recommendations in the report. By bringing the action plan into the chamber, we're demonstrating that we have deeply considered the recommendations in the report and are serious about ensuring good governance.
Thank you. And next we have Daniel Scholar, who is not attending today. Georgie, would you mind reading the 3 questions?
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Daniel has 3 questions. The first question, has Council included the completion sealing of Legs Lane in Reservoir in its current works program for 2026-27 Council budget, given it's a key active transport route for children and parents to and from Reservoir Primary School, as well as residents going to and from the Reservoir shops? Question 2, are councillors and council staff aware of the poor condition of Legs Lane, with it filling with mud and puddles during winter and being a hotspot for rubbish dumping, graffiti and unmanaged weeds like blackberries all year round? Question 3, have councillors or council staff met with Reservoir Primary School staff, local families or state and federal members of Parliament to inform themselves on the importance of this issue or to develop a plan for completing sealing Legs Lane as a priority?
I believe Rachel will be answering the questions.
Thank you, Mayor. So the reconstruction of Legs Lane isn't in the current budget. It is something we'll take a look at as we develop the 26-27 budget, which we're doing at the moment. We'll assess it along with priorities right across the city, and there are always more requests for improvements than can be delivered with council's funding. But what I'd encourage you to do is look out for the community consultation process when the draft budget is released for comment in late April. We are aware of some of the challenges there. So council did some consultation with the school community in 2025 in partnership with Reservoir Primary School for its Octopus Schools program. So we're certainly aware of some of the challenges. And following that, we supported the primary school to deliver a mural with anti-graffiti coating to help improve the look and feel of the laneway. Certainly, if people are aware of rubbish dumping or weeds, they can report them to council, and we look at those through the maintenance programs we've got. And the last question, which is, have staff informed themselves on the importance of this issue? Yes, so we're aware of the issue. We'll take a look at this along with other priorities through the budget, and please let us know if there's maintenance issues that need attention. Thanks.
And the next submitter is Mayan Lin, who's not attending today. Georgie, could you read her questions?
Thank you. Mayan has 3 questions through you, Mayor. With reference to my question on the 15th of the 12th, 2025, Council advised in their reply that there are various public toilets in the nearby park, approximately 510, 700 and 860 metres away from Keon Park Station. Do you expect women, the elderly and children to walk into an unlinked car park over 500 metres away to use the toilets? Question 2. Could you please advise why this council built a new toilet block in All Nations Park when it's adjacent to the Northcote Plaza, just like Keon Park? Question 3. Council advised it had constructive conversations with the PTV re public toilets at the Keon Park station, which have not been built. Why are the shopkeepers in Johnson Street being burdened to provide toilet facilities for train commuters due to lack of foresight by the PTV and council?
Vanessa?
Thank you, Mayanne, for your questions, and through you, Mayor. We acknowledge the importance of public amenities, and this is why in June 2022, Council endorsed design guidelines for the Keon Park level crossing project, which included a top ask of the state government for the new Keon Park station and the surrounds to include amenities such as toilets. With your second question, assets are placed with consideration to infrastructure priorities, community needs, and available resources. The All Nations toilet block was due for renewal and reconstruction. This toilet facility has a high use because it is located in a large regional park. And to answer your third question, the station development was delivered by the state government and not council. While council played a role in advocating for design aspects and amenities, including toilets, it did not deliver the project. You may wish to advocate directly to the state government. Council doesn't require shop owners to let the public use their toilets.
The next submitter is Warwick Blackmore, who's not attending today. Georgie, would you mind reading the questions?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. So the first question is, given rental affordability and low vacancy rates in Darebin, what steps could council take to regulate whole-of-home short-stay accommodation services, such as those operated by Airbnb and stays? Question 2, is council planning to explore the impact of short-term accommodation on affordable housing in its upcoming housing strategy? And question 3, Is Darebin Council aware of approaches other councils have taken to regulate short stay accommodation?
Vanessa, would you mind answering the question?
Thank you, Mayor. And Mayor Fiona has also asked similar questions this evening, and I will answer them both together here. Thank you, Warwick, and thank you, Fiona, for your questions. Housing is a priority for Council, and Council recognises that appropriate housing is essential for safeguarding the health and wellbeing of a community, and that access to housing is a basic human right. The Darebin Community Amenity Local Law 2025 does not contain any specific controls relating to the regulation of short stay accommodation. Some other councils have introduced controls, but they're to mitigate nuisance and amenity issues that can arise from short stays through their local law. On the 29th of October 2024, the Short Stay Levy Act was legislated by the Victorian Government. And so since the 1st of January 25, a short stay levy is charged on the total booking fee for a stay in a short stay. And this levy collected by platforms or hosts raises revenue that then funds social and affordable housing, with 25% invested in regional Vic. And this levy is the main control for short-term stays by discouraging investors from entering in the short stay market and instead remaining in the rental market. With your second question, the council plan does include finalising and implementing the housing strategy, and this action includes developing a roadmap for increasing social and affordable housing in Darebin. We've started work on preparing a planning scheme amendment for parts 1 and 2, which council adopted in August last year. So part 3 will focus on social and affordable, and when we start work on this part of the strategy, we intend to review all forms of non-market housing to inform our work, and we will also review all the ways that council could influence the supply of affordable and social housing in Darebin.
Is Fiona Nelson in the gallery? Fiona, I believe your question was very similar to Warwick's, so Vanessa has answered those just previously. Is that, yep, wonderful, thank you. Next we have Graham Bentley. Is Graham, thank you, Graham.
Thank you, Mayor. Residents of Gower Street received a letter on the 19th of the 2nd, 2026, so last week, dated the 29th of January 2026, regarding bike lanes and pedestrian crossing proposals for Gower Street. The consultation period closes on the 28th of the 2nd. We require more than 1 week to meet with all the Gower Street residents in order to get their signatures on a petition. Question 1 is, could you please extend the deadline until after the next council meeting? Question 2, could the pedestrian crossing proposal be amended to include a traffic light instead of flashing lights? And number 3, could these proposed works be put onto the agenda for discussion at the next meeting and the presentation of a petition from the Gower Street residents opposing the works?
I believe Vanessa will be answering the questions.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Graham, for your questions, and I particularly want to thank you for letting us know that you only recently received your letter. I am sorry for the delay, and we're going to extend the submission period until the 8th of March. The portal, so the consultation portal shouldn't take more than a few minutes to provide your feedback, but you're also very welcome to call our team using the direct phone number on the letter and discuss the project with them. The next steps for the project are for the feedback from the community to be considered with other transport data and design standards, and this step will consider whether a project should be recommend that the project should be updated or kept the same before an officer recommendation will be made to council in April. With your second question, feedback from the community about the type of crossing and anything else shared about the approach for Gower Street will be considered against design standards, again, before officer recommendations are made to council. And with your third question, it is proposed to table this project for Council's consideration at the April Council meeting, and your feedback and input is valued. Petitions are welcome and should follow the petition requirements which are on Council's website, but again, you feel welcome to call the officers if you'd like to do that as well. Thank you.
Mayor, can I move a procedural motion to extend public question time by 30 minutes?
Wonderful. I was just about to ask. Thanks, Councillor Jelly. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tsalkos. All those in favour of extending question time by 30 minutes? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on, we have Brendan Murphy. Would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Brendan.
Is that okay? That's just Bread Hub Victoria coming in peace and hope. Brendan Murphy, President of Bread Hub Victoria, proud son of the West. Our question is to the City of Darebin. Council, do you guys value and like Pool Hub? Thank you.
Thanks, Brendan. I believe Nina will be answering the question.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Brendan, for the question. Council supports Pool Hub. It has provided discounted vouchers to support the Pool Hub program at Reservoir Leisure Centre over the past 2 years, and the Pool Hub program complements other initiatives that support families at risk of disadvantage in Reservoir. Officers are very happy to meet to discuss how Council might work with Pool Hub in the future, and our Manager of Recreation and Libraries will be in contact.
Thank you. Next, we have Nicole Brown, who's not attending the meeting today. Georgie, would you mind reading the questions?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Nicole has 2 questions. Given the well-known safety risks at the corner of Henty Street and Gilbert Road, can Darebin City Council confirm whether pedestrian and traffic safety improvements at this location will be prioritised within the Your Street, Your Say Group A? And if not, what is required for this site to be elevated as a priority? Question 2, if Your Street, Your Say Group A is still in early stages and a full upgrade is not imminent, what short-term or interim safety measures, such as speed calming, signage, temporary crossings or enforcement, will Council implement at the Henty Street, Gilbert Road roundabout, and within what time frame? And there is a third question. Given Council's awareness of ongoing safety risks at the corner of Henty Street and Gilbert Road, including speeding and the lack of safe pedestrian crossings, how does Council justify approving further development at this location, including a childcare centre, when supporting safety infrastructure is not yet prioritised or in place, and how is this risk being addressed?
Vanessa, I believe, is answering the question.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Nicole, for your questions. On the 23rd of June 2025, Council considered a report about Your Street, Your Say Group A projects. And at this meeting, Council resolved to allocate funding to the Capital Works program to achieve the full delivery of the following projects within the term of this Council: Gilbert Road and Henty Street intersection and Gilbert Road and Edward Street intersection. And for your question 2, design work is progressing for improvements at these intersections in the current financial year. Council will be seeking feedback on the draft 2026-27 budget in late April, including the Capital Works program, and I would encourage you to be involved. As the design has already started for the final layout, interim safety measures can't be installed in advance of the final changes, and this is because any change to the road layout requires detailed design work, and that can take up to 12 months. And for your third question, the approval of development throughout the municipality, it's guided by the Darebin planning scheme, and that requires consideration of a range of different design and also environmental factors.
Thank you. Our next question is from Glenn Caesar, who won't be attending the meeting. Georgie, would you mind asking the questions?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Question 1, does Darebin Council agree that the total costs associated with the municipal monitors appointed to oversee Council from April 2024 to June 2025 was at least or around $250,000? If not, how much did this cost ratepayers? Question 2. The Municipal Monitor's report has not been attached to the papers for this council meeting. There's only scant reference to it hidden in the governance report. This is an obvious departure from usual practice. Why is Darebin Council being less transparent than other councils in this regard?
And I believe you're answering the question. Oh, Anna. Sorry, Anna. Thanks.
It's okay, through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Glenn. In relation to your first question about the municipal monitors, the Minister for Local Government is responsible for setting the terms of reference, the appointment of monitors and setting their daily rate. This is common practice across the appointment of monitors in the sector, and local councils don't have the scope to negotiate these terms or dictate the number of days worked by the monitors. In relation to your second question, about providing the community with a copy of the Monitor's report, we take on board this feedback that we didn't include it in the meeting agenda that we see before us tonight. But we can also confirm that a news item was published on our website on the 17th of December, which was the same day it was released by the Minister for Local Government. The report was also published on the Local Government Victoria website. We are deeply committed to transparency, which is why we brought the action plan responding to the Monitor's report into the Chamber for council endorsement and also for community awareness.
And finally, we have John Nugent, who's not attending today. Georgie, would you mind asking the questions?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. John's first question is, Council received a $1 million grant from the state government for lighting around the city. Could Council advise why Dole Reserve wasn't picked for funding and what criteria did they have to meet? Was picked for funding. Question 2. On the 15th of December, I submitted my 3 questions and a petition well before 12 noon. These questions were not read and put into the minutes. Also, the petition was not presented to Council. Everybody makes mistakes, but why should I have to wait another 10 weeks to get my questions answered and petition presented to Council? Something should have been done when it's Council's error. And the third question, John submitted a third question in relation to Donath Reserve. According to section 15.3, the chairperson has disallowed this question as it deals with the subject matter already answered.
Thank you. Nina, I believe you're answering the first question.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, John. Council was invited to submit an application specifically for IW Dole as it was an identified priority with the state government. It met the state government 2020-2021 Community Sports Infrastructure Stimulus Program criteria, including that the project will support increased sport participation. It was also aligned with Council's outdoor sports infrastructure framework.
Anna, I believe you're answering question 2.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. John, in relation to your question about your questions and petition that didn't make it to the December meeting, we acknowledge that there was an error made where your questions and petition were not received by Governance Services team before the deadline. However, in our correspondence to you dated the 5th of January 2026, we apologised for this oversight and have provided responses to your questions, which you submitted on the night.
Thank you, everyone. We're now moving on to submissions. Our governance rules permit Oh. Hello. Sorry, what was your name? Emma, I believe we have already answered your question. So we had an officer read out your question because you hadn't made it in for the time. Yeah, so if you have a look at the recording, you'll see the answers, and it'll also be available on the minutes. Wonderful, thank you. So we are moving on to submissions. Our governance rules permits members of the public to register to address an ordinary council meeting in relation to reports listed on the agenda. Thank you to those people who have registered their intention to do this. Tonight we have received 7 requests to make submissions. As we have a large agenda to get through this evening, I will exercise my discretion as chairperson in accordance with the governance rule 14.14, and we will hear from each submitter now rather than wait until the agenda item. When I call your name, you are invited to come to the lectern to speak for 2 minutes. Our first submitter is Theo Crambius for about 9.1 property EOI Trench 2. Thank you, Theo.
Thank you. And I'm the director of CH James. We submitted a tender for the Pioneers Retreat. My submission tonight sits well within clause 4 of the tender documents, which the expression of interest finished on the 22nd of September. Our submission is to create an all year round hub, a community hub at Pioneers Retreat. This community hub will include seasonal food markets, a cafe, music events in the park, and cinema events. We're partnering with the Kilara Foundation, which is a training youth organisation for young Indigenous. And not only will we be providing the service, but we'll also be providing a training program for young local Indigenous. And lastly, our proposal meets all the values well within the guidelines of the expression of interest. So we would like to ask for this proposal to be considered when you're considering your agenda item later on in the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Theo. Next, we have submissions for 9.4 Darebin Strategic Advocacy Priorities. And first we have Jacinta Murray.
Hi there. We are submitting to ask for advocacy for our service. So I am Jacinta Murray and I'm the Director and Educational Leader of J.S. Gray Kindergarten. We were established in West Preston in 1992 and now have been in operation for 34 years. Originally, we were a one-room service when built alongside the maternal child health nurse offices, and it has since been expanded with a portable addition to expand it to become a two-room service. The portable has now been in place for over a decade, though it was never intended to be permanent, and the infrastructure of the portable and original building are in desperate need of upgrading to ensure they are suitable and inclusive for both 3- and 4-year-old kinder. All aspects of the service, including the kindergarten and the maternal child health nurse, are needing a total overhaul with minimal upgrades occurring since it was originally built. Currently, our kindergarten is able to offer 2 3-year-old kindergarten groups of 26 children each and 2 4-year-old kindergarten groups of 30 each. The Victorian Government is currently in the process of rolling out pre-prep to increase the hours of 4-year-olds attending kindergarten from 15 hours to 30. We have been able to action the first stage of the rollout this year, with an additional 5 hours being offered in 1 4-year-old group, but further rollouts will see our capacity slashed to just 1 4-year-old kinder group of 30 children. We simply do not have the physical space to keep up with the rollout, and each year brings us closer to the deadline. If we were able to upgrade and expand, many of the existing issues would naturally resolve. Previous discussions around expansion were paused and then cancelled after costings determined it would be too expensive. Only one option was actually costed by council and other alternatives were not looked at in depth. We would like to see a number of our ideas and solutions looked at in more depth and a proper plan actioned with a timeline to ensure it is complete before the final stages of the pre-prep rollout. Over the last few years, our service has begun to see an increase in the number of children with... run out of time.
Thank you, Jacinta. Appreciate you being here. Lauren Vella.
Good evening, Chair and Councillors. My name is Lauren Vella and I live in Reservoir, and I'm here tonight as a parent from J.S. Gray Kindergarten and a member of the Committee of Management. But most importantly, I'm here as a mum. My children have grown up using the services in the shared buildings from maternal and child health through to kindergarten. I've seen how vital this place is for families, not just for education, but for connection, supports and stability during the time of most vulnerable years of parenting. I represent families from West Preston who are deeply worried about access to local kindergarten. I have a 4-year-old daughter currently attending J.S. Gray and a nearly 7-year-old who attended previously. When my eldest first applied, she was accepted to Kookaburra Kindergarten, and then that service suddenly closed. After that, she was rejected from J.S. Gray because there were simply no places left. This happened at one of the hardest times in my life. My sister-in-law had just passed away unexpectedly. I was preparing for spinal surgery and I had a newborn baby. I was overwhelmed, grieving and physically struggling, and I was desperately relying on my daughter getting into our local kindergarten. My closest support network, my best friend and her child had places there, and we were ready to help with pick-up and drop-offs. When my daughter was refused, it felt like the ground disappeared beneath me. No parent should have to experience that level of stress and uncertainty simply trying to access local early education. Right now, families still live with that same fear in Darebin. There's no guarantee that a child can continue from 3-year-old kindergarten into 4-year-old at the same service. Children can lose their friends, their trusted educators and their sense of security overnight. And with pre-prep reducing J.S. Gray's capacity from 60 to just 30 without a third room, this crisis will only get worse. We're simply asking for what every family hopes for: stability, fairness and the ability for our children to grow in their own local community. We ask Council to guarantee continuity between 3- and 4-year-old kindergarten, introduce local zoning to prioritise neighbourhood families and upgrade J.S. Gray, including building a third room. Increase kindergarten places in West Preston. It's about children feeling safe, it's about parents having support when they need it most, and it's about protecting the heart of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie. Next we have, oh, that was Lauren actually. Sorry, next is Marnie. My apologies. Thanks, Marnie. Marnie Dalton.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. Thank you so much for listening to us tonight. My name is Marnie Dalton and I reside in Reservoir. I'm speaking to you tonight as a parent of a child at JS Gray Kindergarten and a member of the Committee of Management. In addition to being a member of the JS Gray Kindergarten community, my children have also used the maternal child health services within the shared facilities. So I've seen firsthand how these facilities, just how important they are to families all the way from birth all the way to school years. I'm here representing many families from West Preston who have raised concerns about access, continuity and infrastructure at our local kindergarten. As a parent, I've witnessed firsthand how stressful our kindergarten allocation system can be. Our son currently attends 4-year-old kindergarten at JS Gray, and I have a younger child due to start 3-year-old kinder next year. Like many families in our community, I cannot be certain that she will be able to attend our local community kindergarten due to the strong demand, priority criteria, and the shortage of kindergarten places in West Preston. That uncertainty is deeply unsettling to families who simply want their children to attend their local kindergarten and grow within a stable community. Right now in Darebin, there is also no guarantee that a child who attends 3-year-old kindergarten at a service will receive a place at the same kindergarten for 4-year-old. It means young children and their families who have built trusted relationships and early friendships can suddenly be uprooted from the environment where they feel safe and secure. For young children, continuity matters, stability matters, and a sense of belonging matters. With the rollout of pre-prep increasing 4-year-old hours to 30 per week, as mentioned, the capacity at JS Gray will reduce from 60 places to just 30 unless the third kindergarten room is delivered. The demand for our amazing kindergarten remains consistently strong, with waiting lists largely specific to our service. Without timely investment and expansion, Council risks not only limiting future growth, but losing existing kindergarten places in an area already identified as experiencing increasing demand through Council's early years infrastructure plan. While investment has supported upgrades at other services, we have not shared that same or benefited from similar renewal despite that strong and sustained local demand. We respectfully ask Council to incorporate measures to address these issues into the forthcoming budget and planning cycle and protect access to early childhood education in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Marnie. Next we have Alexandra Gill.
Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. My name is Alexandra Gill and I live in Regent West of Reservoir, and I'm speaking tonight as a parent, as the President of the Committee of Management of JS Gray Kindergarten and as a strategist in my professional life. And I speak on Agenda 9.4, Darebin's strategic advocacy priorities. Families in the West Ward value local sessional kindergarten. We value walking to kinder, we value children forming friendships that flow into local primary schools. We value bush kinder and outdoor learning as core parts of early childhood, not optional extras. But right now, access is tightening. Darebin's own planning identifies Preston West as a growth corridor for young families. Pre-PEP reform, as you've heard, is expanding hours, and 2 local kindergartens have closed in recent years. So the question isn't whether demand exists, it does. The question is, how are we responding together? What we're seeing isn't bad luck, it's predictable, and it's the intersection of population growth, major state reform, service consolidation, and infrastructure that hasn't kept pace. The consequences are real. Local families are travelling further, care is becoming fragmented, and the time is right to improve how everything is working to enforce help workforce participation. We're also seeing families who are ready and willing to use sessional kindergarten who are being displaced into private long daycare settings right when anxiety in that sector is sky high, because there's a lack of sessional availability. And there is a systemic issue, bush kinder being particularly vulnerable in that space due to its need for access for weather backup space, regulatory clarity and coordination between council and state settings. But it remains very valuable to all of us. So my submission is straightforward. I urge council to actively partner with local kindergartens and the state government to identify and remove barriers to increasing capacity in Preston West, whether those barriers relate to infrastructure, land access, planning constraints or funding alignment. We can find a solution together. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexandra. Moving on, we have one submitter for 9.5 ML CIP application BT Connor Reserve, David Svetkovsky.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name is David Svetkovsky. I'm the proud president of Preston Lions. It's been our dream for a number of years to build a multi-purpose synthetic ground at BT Connor. This dream started in 2020 in collaboration with the council. We invested $7,000 into a feasibility study that we were going to present to council and to governments. As many of you know, we are one of the biggest clubs, not in the municipality, but in the country, with over 35,000 people on our database. 4,500 people attended a game on Friday night. 450 junior participants growing to 600 in the next 18 months. The majority are 4 to 10-year-old little girls and boys. It's the game's growing. Our winters are harsh over the last 6 years. From May pretty much to August, we're bogged, waterlogged, we have potholes and poor grass coverage, and on average lose 100 days in the middle of our football season, despite the club investing $3,500 per ground ourselves every year to try and maintain the lawns. And we do this every year. $15,000 to $30,000 are spent in seeking other synthetic grounds within other municipalities just for our kids to train, and I don't think they'll be training this week either. Fortunately, thanks you to the federal government, we have been given $1.5 million in funding for this synthetic ground that's been mapped out. It's been costed. There is a difference and the club is prepared to pay the difference, as we always have. We're very proud of our relationship with council and to continue this. We need to grow our junior facilities, especially with the growth in Indigenous All Abilities and the Soccer Mums programs. And we've spoken to the ground experts to reduce the costs of watering, increase usage and participation, provide high quality surfaces and increase benefit for the community. We're looking at a FIFA approved facility, fully recycled materials, organic corking fill, not rubber, and enclosed concrete so that there's no leaching. What I'm asking for on behalf of council is for us to increase our youth development, our community engagement, long-term sustainability, and the efficient use of our resources. I thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next submitter is for 9.8, the governance report, February 2026. Matthew Zammit. Is Matthew in the audience? No? Okay. We will now move on to petitions. Councillors, we have 2 petitions this evening. Before we call for the petitions to be tabled, it might be useful to explain what the process of accepting petitions means. It is not Council's role to vote in support or in opposition of the content of the petition. Tonight, we are simply performing a procedural function of accepting the petition and referring it to the CEO. I will also remind councillors that in tabling a petition, you must confine yourselves to a statement of A, the persons for whom it comes, B, the number of signatories to it, C, material matters expressed in it, and D, the text of the petition. Councillor Boglis, would you like to table petition 1, ensuring access, equity and quality for local kindergarten families?
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mayor. I seek to table a petition concerning JS Gray Kinder and ensuring access, equity and quality for local kindergarten families, to be referred to the CEO for consideration and response. The petition has been signed by approximately 170 people and complies with the council governance rules, and the petition reads as follows. We, the residents and community members of Darebin, call on Darebin City Council to take urgent action to protect and strengthen early childhood education in Preston West, Regent and surrounding areas by committing to the following. Guarantee continuity of kindergarten placements. Ensure that all children enrolled in a funded 3-year-old kindergarten program are automatically offered a place in the 4-year-old kinder program at the same kindergarten. This prevents children from losing continuity under the current allocation system. 2, introduce local zoning for kindergarten enrolments. Prioritise enrolments for children living in the immediate local area to ensure families can access their closest kindergarten and maintain community connection. 3, upgrade JS Gray kindergarten facilities. Invest in a comprehensive upgrade of JS Gray kindergarten, including modern, inclusive and accessible maternal child health nurse rooms, a 3rd kindergarten room to maintain and expand places, improvements to indoor and outdoor learning spaces. 4, create a community hub for early years services. Develop an indoor shared space for early year programs, including bush kinder, to support continuity during extreme weather and allow additional groups to run, increasing capacity across our networks. 5, increase kindergarten places in West Preston. 2 local kindergartens have closed in recent years. This is reducing supply while demand continues to grow. JS Gray is one of the few exceeding rated services in the area. We ask Darebin City Council to incorporate these measures in the 2025-2026 budget and planning cycle to ensure children in our community can continue to access safe, high-quality local kindergarten education.
Thank you, Councillor Boglis. Do I have a seconder to the tabling of the petition as moved by Councillor Boglis? Thank you. That's seconded by Councillor Villela. I now call on Jacinta Murray as the submitter of the petition to make a 2-minute submission.
Thank you. Hello again. My name is Jacinta Murray and I am the Director of JSK Kindergarten in West Preston, and I'm also a local resident who lives in walking distance to our kindergarten and am the parent of 2 young children. My youngest was lucky enough to have been able to attend JS Gray for 3 years and loved the fact that a number of his peers and close friends were local to the area and familiar faces from our time at the park and our streets where they would ride their scooters and bikes. Our kindergarten is an exceeding service with an excellent reputation in West Preston and the surrounding areas. The registration process for attending our kindergarten is managed by the Darebin Council, and each year we prove to be very popular with an extensive waiting list of families hoping to get in well after the year has begun. We are now the only community kindergarten located in West Preston after 2 other services closed down in recent years, and we have not heard of any plans for the opening of any other community kindergartens in our area. Every year we hear more stories of families in our local community missing out on attending their local kindergarten and needing to travel further out. We would love to be able to accommodate them. Even for those who are offered a treasured spot for 3-year-old kindergarten, there is no guarantee that they will be able to return for 4-year-old kindergarten. The current process is extremely stressful and emotional for many of our families, and each year we navigate supporting families who missed out on returning for their final year of kindergarten and are left in limbo hoping another family will drop out. Some are able to patiently wait and hope, while others are forced to find alternative options. Each year we have a healthy wait list for both 3- and 4-year-old kindergarten, but are unable to take many families off the waiting list for 4-year-old kindergarten. Our waiting list for 4-year-old kindergarten was 23 in October, and the total number of 4-year-olds for the Preston Thornbury area was only 29. We know that if we were able to expand and upgrade our facilities, that many of our registration and placement issues for families would lessen and potentially even resolve. We want families to be able to attend a service that is safe, clean, accessible and well thought out for meeting their needs. Our service is currently in dire need of renovation and we are struggling to meet the needs of the children enrolling. It requires significant improvements to our bathrooms and entryways in particular. The maternal child health nurse is also in similar need of significant repairs. We urge Council to consider our petition and support these ideas and needs that we bring to you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacinta. I'll put that item to the vote, that motion rather to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Councillor Villala, would you like to table petition 2, request for City of Darebin construct a toilet block in Johnson Street, Keon Park?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, the petition reads as follows. I seek to table a petition concerning a request for City of Darebin construct a toilet block in Johnson Street, Keon Park, to be referred to the CEO for consideration and response. The petition has been signed by approximately 130 people and complies with the Council's governance rules. The petition reads as follows. We, the shop owners and residents, request that the City of Darebin construct a toilet block in Johnson Street, Keon Park, so that people can use without going to ask the shop owners to use their premises.
Thank you, Councillor Villala. Do I have a seconder to the tabling of the petition as moved by Councillor Villala? Councillor Olaris. I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Councillors, would you like a 5-minute break? Yes. Thanks. Do I have a motion for 5 minutes? Councillor Villala and a seconder, Councillor Tsolkos. All those in favour of a 5-minute break? Thank you so much. Oh, that's carried unanimously. Cheers. Councillors, are we ready?
That was mine. Go.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, councillors, I'd like to call for a procedural motion to change the order of business so that item 9.4, 9.5 and 11.2 are heard before the remainder of the agenda.
Do I have a second for that procedural motion? Councillor Villela. I'll put that motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Okay, so the next item on the... Oh, we're moving on to reports. Councillors, we have a very full agenda this evening and we need to get through in line with the time limits in our governance rules. I will be permitting questions of officers prior to the commencement of debate on each item, but if I believe sufficient questioning has occurred, I may exercise my right under the governance rules to limit questions and ask the debate to commence. I may also exercise my right to ask for only the mover, seconder, and any councillor speaking against to speak to the motion. But hopefully we'll all be on time. So the first report we have to consider now that we've moved the procedural motion is 9.4 Darebin Strategic Advocacy Priorities. Okay, councillors, do you have any questions of the officers regarding this item? Councillor Jelly. Councillor O'Brien, my apologies.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wondered if the officers could outline the process to categorise in a little bit of detail. I know it's in the report, but some people watching may not have read it in that detail, so just a bit of a synopsis so we understand the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Councillor O'Brien. So there was a tiered approach to assessing these priorities, and they were either Tier 1, Tier 2 or Tier 3, these priorities, and they were based on their highest priority issues that reflect our Darebin strategic priorities in our council plan, and they were those that I suppose are the most ready and able for us to advocate for funding sooner rather than later. Tier 2 are they're of course important issues as well, and they reflect our strategic directions in our council plan, but they haven't been assessed to have the same level of urgency that Tier 1 does. And Tier 3 also very important but have lower impact and less urgent but still remain a priority for council.
Are there any other questions, Councillor Jelly?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just a question on how, what would be the impact? So thank you. We've just heard about how the tiers have been sort of broken down and divided. What would be the actual actions? For example, looking at Tier 1 under Category 3 for protecting and increasing canopy cover and open space with a focus on Preston Reservoir and new activity centres. If we already knew through our internal analysis that there were specific streets in Preston and Reservoir that have a higher need for canopy cover, is that something that would be addressed directly, and how would that be addressed directly through that advocacy work?
Anna?
Yep. So thank you, through you, Mayor. Councillor Jelly, thanks for the question. So the strategic approach would be about identifying those opportunities, so what we know to be those opportunities to increase canopy in open space, and then we would be doing a stakeholder mapping exercise and working with those stakeholders and decision makers that can help us with that approach, and seeking grants or funding opportunities for that. There'd be some collateral that would be produced as well to help us with those conversations and to influence decision makers to help us to fund these projects.
Are there any other questions? If there are no further questions, we will commence debate. I remind you that once we enter debate, there will be no further questions. Councillor Boglis, did you have something?
No, not a question. I'm seeking to move the motion.
Sure. Sorry. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Boglis. Do I have a seconder for... Oh, sorry. Yes, we need the motion on the screen. Is that your motion, Councillor Boglis?
Yes, that is my motion.
Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Villella. Does the mover wish to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Through you. I rise to speak to item 9.4 regarding Council's advocacy priorities for 26-27, and I want to highlight a few areas where strong advocacy can make a tangible difference for our community. We've heard here tonight submitters for a petition from JS Gray and early childhood education. Under our amendment, we're advocating for the expansion of Darebin in the northwest part of Darebin and JS Gray Kindergarten in West Preston. This is to ensure sufficient 3 and 4-year-old kindergarten places are available now and into the future. JS Gray Kindergarten is the only council-run session kindergarten in Preston West and projected to show a potential shortfall of around 253 places by 2036, particularly with the full rollout of the 30-year pre-prep. Council has already engaged with local members for Preston and relevant departments to explore expansion options, continuing to advocate for funding, including Department of Education building blocks grants, is essential to meet this growing community need and to ensure equitable access to high-quality early childhood education, especially for our families facing barriers such as transport cost and social disadvantage. Under point B, safe and accessible transport for all, I'm seeking to add to this advocacy tier to progress the Melbourne Water Pipe Track Corridor project within Darebin, because as we know, investing in these cycles and paths supports physical activity, sustainable transport and community connection. It also ensures these public spaces are inclusive for people with limited mobility, families with prams and older residents. And I also want to note to Chambers that a NOM last year recommended that this advocacy be part of what we are achieving here at Council, directed to Melbourne Water and government, local government. So I commend the officers for their work in compiling these advocacy priorities, and I urge all councillors to support this amendment, ensuring Darebin continues to lead on inclusion, accessibility and community wellbeing.
Thank you, Councillor Boglis. Does the seconder wish to speak? Councillor Villella, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes. I think it's really important that we listen to the community, and obviously there is a need to advocate for the JS Gray Kindergarten in West Preston. I just think it's important to really make sure that the community voice is heard. The act of advocacy, it seems to me that there's been lots of work done. There is a need there, and it's been going on for a while. So best to include it. Thank you.
Are there any councillors who wish to speak in opposition to the motion? Councillor Turi?
Thank you, Mayor. What we heard from petitioners just a moment ago, and thank you to those who contributed to the meeting, is that there is unmet need in a particular region, and also acknowledging that that need is broader, clearly. And JS Gray, or Darebin, as is listed in this motion on the table, is not lost in what was originally proposed by the officers in the agenda. At this point, I will foreshadow that if this motion is defeated, I will move the officer recommendation. These kinders do great work, but this item is about being strategic for the whole municipality. The advocacy is about where we can meet need and where we can have the most impact. If the answer to that question is indeed JS Gray or Darebin, then fantastic. I have absolutely no issue with that. But we should not be nominating particular premises or locations at this time before we commence that advocacy. But rather, let's see where we can actually make the most difference. The purpose of this strategy is to make sure we're actioning those that are most ready and not limiting the scope at this point. Turning very briefly to the pipe track, of course, this is already in our list, as listed in the agenda. It is at Tier 2. We all know that that particular project is being progressed, and I won't go into detail about that. But again, we're limiting the scope. We're pulling one project out of the Northern Trails strategy instead of working collaboratively with the Northern Councils Alliance, because this is not just about Darebin, that's actually broader than Darebin. The Melbourne Water Pipe Track makes up a key part of that, but pulling one out and making it sit above the rest, I don't think is prudent at this point. It doesn't serve our advocacy well, and I won't be supporting the motion.
Councillor O'Brien, did you have something you wanted to say?
I would like to speak to the motion.
Oh, right. You had your hand up for a while. Okay, so yes, Councillor O'Brien, you may speak.
Thank you. I guess just to say I agree largely with what Councillor Arturi has just outlined for various reasons. I won't go into the same. But I do have concerns with point 2 and 3 being crossed out here as well, and I don't think that serves us. So I won't be supporting the motion on that basis. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Sangster.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, my concern is about 2 and 3 being crossed out, and I'm wondering if that's a mistake.
Councillor Boglis, did you have something?
Sorry, Mayor, I don't know why that's crossed out because that wasn't part of my alternate motion. 1A and B are, 2 and 3 are not anything to do with an amendment I've put forward.
The motion moved and seconded, it becomes the motion. Now that the debate has started, I think the best way is to seek an amendment to have them put back in.
Given we've already entered debate, is there a councillor that would like to move an amendment to put those back in? And unfortunately, the mover and seconder can't. It has to be another councillor. Councillor Sangster?
Thank you, through Mayor. Mayor, I'd like to move a motion that we reinstate 2 and 3 to the 9.4.
Is there a seconder to that amendment? No, it has to be another councillor. Is there another? Councillor O'Brien? And Councillor Boglis, do you agree with that amendment? They don't need to. Okay.
Motion to amend.
Okay, that's right. Right, so we're reinstating points 2 and 3.
Move that this is a motion that needs to be debated.
Okay, so we're...
The mover needs to talk to it. No?
No.
Sorry, no.
Can I raise a point of order?
Yes.
Mayor? My understanding is that Councillor Sangster proposed an amendment, then it should go to the mover and the seconder to see whether it's accepted. If they accept it, it becomes a substantive motion. Is that correct?
No, you need the mover and the seconder to accept a seconder. So my understanding is that
Before debate starts.
they can move. Okay, so let's go back. So we have Councillor Sangster who's moved an amendment. It's been seconded by Councillor O'Brien. Now I'm going to ask the mover and the seconder if they accept it, and then it will become the substantive motion.
Yes, I accept.
Yes, I do. Yes.
So I believe that's the substantive motion now. So we're back to moving this substantive motion. Are there any other speakers that would like to speak to this motion? Councillor Olaris.
Look, just very briefly, I think in support of Councillor Arturi's position that he raised, I agree that these two things are already in our advocacy plan. So the first one is a tier 1. It's listed in there. It's just not listed as JS Grey. It's listed as improving access to 3 and 4-year-old in kinders in West Preston. Gellibrand is listed separately. That's because we began working with government around Gellibrand from last, I think it's December last year. So it's well more progressed. So this list is not about what we think is the most important. It's about what's progressed ready to be part of an advocacy plan for this year. There's also opportunities for emerging issues to be included in the plan at a later date, we understand, and certainly we will soon be receiving a full report on JS Grey. So, yeah, I don't think this means that we don't do advocacy around JS Grey. It's literally written as a tier 1 priority under the kinder section. And the second one, I think, is currently Tier 2, that's fair to say, but it does include the Melbourne water pipeline in that priority. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Alaris. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Boglis, you do have a right of reply if you like.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will take that. I guess I just want to remind councillors that this came to us back in December 2024 when we were deciding on kindergartens that would progress. Blake Street was one, and as was Jellybrand, and JS Grey was to be considered. I'm now asking you all to consider JS Grey. So it is coming up as advocacy because it does need the resources and it does need support to progress. So it is coming to you now in the chambers. In relation to the Melbourne Water Pike Track, that is already in a notice of motion, that is already there for advocacy. It is just including it into what is our strategic plan to the greater strategic trail strategy across Darebin. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, there's no further debate. I will put this item to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Boglis, Councillor Sangster, Councillor Valella. All those against? Councillor Turi, Councillor Jelly, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Alaris, Councillor Tselkos, and I'll be abstaining. Councillor Dimitriadis. Councillor Turi?
Can I now move?
Oh, sorry, that motion has lost. Councillor Arturi, you foreshadowed a motion?
I did foreshadow and like to move the motion
Yep.
now. The officer's recommendation, please.
That's right. Is that the motion that you want to move? Yep. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Tselkos? Councillor Arturi, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Our advocacy in 2026 is particularly important. Of course, we have a state election, and we want to be strategic and ensure that we can achieve outcomes for our community. Part of the strategy should, of course, be advocating for projects, as we discussed in the previous debate, for projects and initiatives that are sufficiently advanced and most ready from our side in order to attract the interest of government and commit money and resources to assist in their delivery. We need, of course, to ensure that the projects at the top of our wish list have the work done and foundations laid to be most effective. For example, under Building City for the Future, the High Street streetscape is a very good example of that. The work's been done as we've seen in previous meetings, endorsed by council. Now we can go to our local MPs and candidates and so forth with that blueprint, seek support and investment. Under supporting healthy and thriving communities, we want to advocate for an increase in 3- and 4-year-old kinder places to meet current and future demand. Here, of course, what we have to consider is where our advocacy can have the most impact. Are there projects that are more advanced than others? Where can we actually fix the problem that we have? Either way, sorry, I just lost my place. Under Sustainable Green Livable City, we have protect and increase canopy cover, open space, and I'm glad to see that there is a focus on Preston and Reservoir, and of course advocating for accessible tram route stops on Route 86 under the Safe and Accessible Transport for All. That's just the Tier 1. Of course, then you've got Tier 2, as the officers explained to us in the initial questioning at the beginning of this item. That was very helpful. These are important issues reflecting Council's strategic directions, but without, of course, the high-level urgency of Tier 1. But we still advocate for them. We don't just let them fall by the wayside. And often we do that in partnerships with other organisations who are taking the lead, for example, the M9 or the Northern Council Alliance. And a good example of that is, of course, the Northern Trails strategy, which also affects other cities and is by no means whatsoever lost in this advocacy. With all this in mind, Mayor, I will commend this to the Chamber and look forward to the outcomes of our advocacy.
Thank you, Councillor Turi. Councillor Tselkos has the seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right.
Wonderful. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. So I think We can see the report that was included for us shows the breadth of the work that's involved locally and with other councils and peak bodies, as Councillor Tory just mentioned. It is extensive, and prioritising it into tiers is not a straightforward thing, and I thank the officers for explaining that in a bit more detail earlier. But many of us could point to items that we would still like to see elevated, particularly in areas such as climate adaptation, sustainable development, infrastructure resilience, tree canopy protection, homelessness, and kinder places. The list goes on. But as we've heard from officers, it was not a casual ranking exercise. There was a clear methodology applied, and what we have here is a list that has demonstrable needs, strategic alignment, and deliverability. That brings rigour to the process and ensures we focus our effort where it can have the greatest impact now. That said, the issues in the lower tiers that many of us feel deeply about, including people that have presented tonight. We cannot step away from these issues. They remain critical challenges. Climate pressures are intensifying, infrastructure is being tested, cost of living pressures and housing insecurity continues, and we've heard about the pressure that our local kinders are under. These are structural issues and they require sustained attention. Prioritisation is about sequencing, not abandoning. And our role is to be strategic, evidence-based and united in our advocacy to focus our energy where it can move the dial while continuing to build a case for the next wave of reform. None of this work is solved overnight, unfortunately, but with clear priorities and strong advocacy, we put ourselves in the best position to deliver meaningful change. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Villella, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much. Through you, Mayor, I just wanted to speak to point 3 because I know a lot of people in Reservoir will be thinking, beyond as well, why isn't Reservoir Leisure Centre Tier 1? I think the officer's report clearly states why this particular advocacy is targeted at the state election specifically, and as we know, that's just around the corner, and the items that are elevated to, or chosen for Tier 1 are pretty much ready. They have to have a strong business case for us to even have a look into. Otherwise, we're just wasting our time, and council looks silly. So as we heard, so that's why Reservoir Leisure Centre is not off the agenda. It's just not ready to be a priority at the moment, come November or throughout the year. But it is still there. As we heard tonight, we're working on a business case that will take a while, and hopefully with all that work that's been done over the next 12 months, 2 to 2 years, we'll be in a better position to advocate to state and hopefully federal in the coming years. So it's kind of exciting, but it's a big project. It's going to be big. So we're going to have to put in the time and the resources and make sure that we take the stakeholders along with us, so they have confidence in what council will propose. So I'm kind of happy with that, and hopefully it will be gain fruition in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Villella. Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I rise to endorse this state government advocacy strategy, pardon me, and I begin by thanking officers for providing a transparent framework for building this strategy and enabling councillors the opportunities for feedback and input. In an election year, where probably all of Victoria's 79 councils are advocating for change, it is a challenging environment in which we will be heard amongst a growing crowd. But what Darebin's priorities outlined here tell us is that the state government has not been focused on delivering for our community. Take the Route 86 accessibility upgrades, for example. It has been almost 2 years since government presented design options to upgrade tram stops along High Street in South Central Ward, and they have never been progressed. Nothing was included in the 2025 budget to develop detailed plans, and there appears to be no way forward to actually deliver these desperately needed upgrades for our community. In a way, it's a wasted opportunity for us to have to advocate to state government for them to deliver on their promise 2 years later, when we could be advocating for bigger, bolder changes to benefit Darebin's residents. Unfortunately, I find this quite disappointing. Why also should we be the ones to have to advocate for improved homelessness response services? Again, this tells a tale of a government that is not looking after us here in Darebin, a government that is willing to shift costs onto councils and expect that we will be abiding partners in developing activity centre plans, but still has its eye on demolishing what is left of the public housing towers left in Northcote. And a government that is not taking climate change seriously. We are left begging for budget to plant more trees in our hottest suburbs while the state government approves more fossil fuel extraction projects. I hope we achieve our advocacy goals. I hope in the future we will have a state government that respects Darebin residents enough to deliver on its promises in a timely manner and stops passing the buck.
I'd just like to request that all councillors remain respectful to the debate. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Laris.
Yeah, thank you. First off, Councillor Jelly, just to correct you if I may, this is not just about an advocacy plan to the state government, it's an advocacy plan that is about all levels of government, it's about other key stakeholders. So I also would have to say that I think our state government has been fairly generous in recent years with contributions to kinders, to all sorts of areas that we work in. So, but each to their own opinion. I just wanted to, in line with Councillor Villalla's comments about Reservoir Leisure Centre, which I absolutely agree with. I also just wanted to put a plug in for the Preston Market, something that I've really advocated for strongly in my time in council, and it also sits in this plan, but not at Tier 1. And similarly, that's because we're not just we're not ready just yet to know exactly what our ask is. And so all of these things that sit at lower levels are still progressing. There's still work going on, and I really think that's important for us to remember, that, you know, because it's not Tier 1 doesn't mean it's not an important priority. I do want to thank the staff. I think being a particularly mean feat, is that the right expression, to work with us to all identify a small number of priorities. And I think particularly, you know, I think that it's really important, particularly in an election year, that we do focus on a small number of key priorities to ensure that we're effective, that we're focused, and, you know, that's the best way to influence change. So that's what we've got front and centre in our thinking in developing this plan. So I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laris. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Nope. I will then ask if the seconder would like to speak, given they reserve their right. Yeah. And no, there was no one speaking against, so we will put this item to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 9.4, MLCIP application BT Connor Reserve. Councillors, do you have any questions to the officers regarding this item? Oh, 9.5, sorry. We're on to 9.5, that's right. BT Connor Reserve. Any questions? Okay, given there are no questions, I will ask for a mover of this motion. Councillor Tselkos, and is there a seconder? Councillor Turi. Councillor Tselkos, would you like to speak to the motion?
Sure, thank you, Mayor and councillors. I'm speaking in support of the officer's recommendation to endorse the BT Connor Reserve synthetic pitch 4 upgrade, and to make a submission for the major and local community infrastructure program. This is an opportunity for us to deliver a priority upgrade to a well-used local facility without adding any additional financial pressure to council. In saying that, I wanted to thank our local member, Jed Carney, for her election commitment, where she has invited us to submit an application for $1.5 million, with the remaining of the contribution to be funded by the Preston Lions Football Club. This means this project can be fully funded externally while improving infrastructure on council land. BT Connor is the home of the Preston Lions Football Club with 27 teams and around 500 players, including 150 women and girls. So upgrading this pitch 4 to a synthetic surface will provide a safer, more reliable playing surface and increase capacity for training and competition. This also aligns with Council's commitment to gender-inclusive sport, with the project already identified as a top redevelopment priority through Council's outdoor sports infrastructure program. So I commend this recommendation to Council. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tsalkos. Councillor Turi, as the seconder, would you like to speak?
I'll reserve my right there.
Are there any speakers who wish to speak in opposition to the motion? Councillor Sangster.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Councillors, tonight we're being asked to support a project that would replace living natural grass with synthetic turf, funded through a federal grant from the Australian Government. But a grant does not make a project sustainable, a grant alone. It does not make it responsible, and it certainly does not make it right for our community. The production of artificial turf generates significant greenhouse emissions, and over time it breaks down, shedding microplastics into surrounding soil and stormwater systems. Those particles don't disappear, they enter waterways, ecosystems, and ultimately the food chain. Once installed, this synthetic surface will continue polluting for years. Then there is the heat. On hot days, synthetic turf can reach temperatures dramatically higher than natural grass. In a municipality already facing rising temperatures, yes, we are the sweatiest and more extreme heat events, why would we replace a cool living surface with one that intensifies the urban heat island effect? Natural grass absorbs carbon, supports biodiversity, cools the air, replenishes soil. Synthetic turf does none of these things. We also need to ask who truly benefits. Public land and public funds should serve the whole community. And while I feel for the many people who are passionate members of the football club, the families and the players and all the little boys and girls, the game will go on, just not on synthetic turf. A federal grant is public money, it's our money, and it's mind-blowing that we would spend our shared wealth on a project which is so damaging to the environment. For decades, governments have delayed serious climate action while continuing to approve new coal and gas projects. We cannot keep mitigating around the edges while making local decisions that add to the problem. Every choice matters. Until the true cost of the climate crisis is recognised in infrastructure damage, health impacts and biodiversity loss, there's going to be no real incentive to change. Council has declared a climate emergency. That has to mean something. Replacing living grass with synthetic is not climate leadership, it's a step backwards. So let's invest in solutions that cool our suburbs, protect our environment and serve the whole community, not projects that lock us into heat, waste and pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Councillor Valella.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. I fully support Councillor Sangster's comments regarding the effect on the environment through a synthetic pitch. I represent the residents of the Northwest Ward, and I'm very familiar with the site. I'm also very familiar with the Preston Lions, think they're a great club. They've been around for a long time. My nephews were members of the club many, many moons ago, and they've grown and they've done a great job. However, I think we need to remember that that whole space is now pretty much dominated by Preston Lions, and so whilst it's great that they use the facilities, it's actually public land, it's actually people's land. And I walked past there the other day and there's just no space there used to be a playground, that's gone. There's all these fences now and it's almost like the public is kept away, or it's not an inviting space. And I think that enough is enough. We have got limited open space. It's people's land, not just a particular club. And if the club is growing, maybe it needs to kind of manage that. But the land, the grassed area is really important for the public well-being, for the environmental well-being, that it comes at the end of an industrial site where the green land is like an oasis. It's really important. We don't want to further compound the concrete jungle with having a synthetic turf. It's really important. Also, if there's with the funding, with the 1 million, 1.2, whatever it is, maybe that can go towards maintaining a grass area. Maybe there are other options, but I do think that that artificial turf is not what that end of reservoir needs. It needs natural grass. It needs the ability for us to go and walk our pets and walk ourselves, plant more trees and make it more inviting. I think the Preston Lions is a great club, but if they've outgrown it, maybe they need to look elsewhere, and let's just keep it community focused.
Thank you,
the way it
Councillor
was.
Belval.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers? Councillor Laris.
I hadn't planned to speak on this one, but I kind of feel like I'm a bit baffled by the conversation so far. This is a significant upgrade to a ground that is completely covered in terms of the cost, so Council's not bearing any burden of the cost here. It's allowing a whole lot more young kids to play sport, and there's enormous benefits in health and wellbeing, fitness, social connection, mental health that come from that. I understand people's concerns about synthetic pitches. We have heard from the club president this evening about their careful choice and about the use of environmental products. So I guess doing the very best we can in that space to make the synthetic pitch as environmentally friendly as it can be. And I think that there's a whole lot of other pitches and space. There's a brand new path. There's a whole lot of area around that particular reserve that people can go and use the open space. So, I'm certainly in support of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laris. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Jelly.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And hearing the comments from my colleagues here tonight, I must say that my feeling on this is that at a time where we are building community resilience in the face of climate crisis, I can't, in all honesty, support the installation of a synthetic pitch that will in itself worsen climate impacts. As Councillor Sangster outlined, I don't need to go into further details about what those impacts are. In executing this grant or supporting this grant to go forward, the federal government is essentially asking us to approve something that's contrary to the goals and the objectives in our climate emergency plan, and that is not something that I can support in this chamber. We have heard that this pitch is in high need with a local football club that is growing at an extraordinary rate, so congratulations on that front. But rejecting the synthetic pitch proposal is not a rejection of children's participation in community sport. It's actually a rejection of something that brings with it damaging impacts on our local environment, which Wurundjeri have nurtured for millennia and which we have a duty under our colonial government and structures to protect.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Turi, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tselkos, you have a right of reply.
Thanks, Mayor, and I didn't think I would need to get up for a right of reply. I'm actually quite baffled, like Councillor Laris was. We heard earlier in the previous 9.4 that Councillor Jolly said we're fighting over money for trees, and similarly this would now come, if this doesn't pass, this will come through as another capital works project, as a priority project, as I said earlier, and is in our report. So we're going to be fighting for more money over something that could be fully funded by external sources. So I hope councillors really reconsider their options.
Okay, so given there's no further debate, I'll put this item to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Turi, Councillor Boglis, Councillor Laris, Councillor Tselkos, Councillor Dimitriadis. All those against? Councillor Jelly, Councillor O'Brien, Councillor Sangster and Councillor Villala. That motion is carried. Moving on to item 11.2, JS Grey Kindergarten capacity. Councillor Boglis, we'll just wait for the motion to come on the screen. Is that your motion, Councillor Boglis?
Yes. Seeking to leave the chair with the slight amendment that's on the screen.
Okay, so you're seeking to leave from the chair to
11.2.
make an amendment with leave.
Yeah.
Yep, so I think that's acceptable. So this is Councillor Boglis's updated NOM. Do we have a seconder for this particular motion? Councillor Villala? Councillor Boglis, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and councillors, J.S. Gray Kindergarten is the only sessional-run kinder in Preston West, as we have heard tonight. For several years, the managers and committee have raised concerns about ongoing capacity pressures. They attended our December 25 meeting to speak directly to those challenges. During my campaign and again after being elected, I met with them. The message has been consistent. Demand exceeds supply. Families are being told daily that there are no places available, and in some cases, children from outside the ward are attending while local families are unable to enrol siblings together. That creates understandable frustration for the residents, for families who want their children educated close to home and within their community. And at the same time, newly built facilities elsewhere in our municipality have lower attendance and do not face the same pressures. These sites were built because it was cheaper to construct them, not because they urgently required expansion. This highlights the mismatch between where investment is happening and where demand is greatest. Projected modelling shows unmet demands in Preston West is expected to increase significantly, particularly with the rollout of a 30-hour pre-prep. And as we know, and as I shared earlier, 253 places are going to be needed by 2036. Once elected, I attended the J.S. Gray Kindergarten with officers and our local member for Preston, Nathan Lambert, who expressed support for exploring these expansions and potential building blocks funding. This motion is not about directing a specific outcome tonight. It's about receiving a clear and updated report on all options to expand capacity and meet demand in Preston West. If we are serious about equitable access to early childhood education and advocacy to all levels of government, particularly for families facing transport, financial barriers and socioeconomic growth, then we must ensure planning aligns with projected growth. An updated report will allow Council to make an evidence-based decision and strengthen our advocacy for state funding support. This isn't about us, it's about our children. And it's about those families who are told there are just no places available. I commend this motion to the council, and although the families have left because, well, they have their children to take care of, the submitters tonight and those who spoke to the advocacy of 9.4, which unfortunately did not pass, were parents, committee members and kinder staff that were here tonight. Thank you.
Councillor Villala, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. Through you, very quickly, Mayor, what this is asking for is just merely a report. Let's just get some information about what the demand is in the Preston West area, what are some of the options and that we can consider, and so I think it's pretty straightforward. We're not committing to anything. We just get some information, some intelligence, and then we can make a more better considered decision when it comes back to council. Thank you.
Are there any councillors who wish to speak in opposition to this motion? Are there any other councillors who'd like to speak to the motion? Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I support this call for a report on how to address community concerns of the urgent and growing need for additional kindergarten places in West Preston. This follows on from the report provided to us in December 2024, which we had to consider how to proceed with kindergarten expansion with the available state government funding. There are some very complex issues to consider when it comes to expanding J.S. Gray Kindergarten, including those that could affect the maternal and child health centre that is operating on site, as is noted in the motion. There is a need for both of these services for families located in Preston West, and so we must consider how to provide more of these services with Council's current funding. And I note that there's what we heard tonight from the submitters on the advocacy item mentioned that I guess one of the unintended consequences of the funding to expand the hours for families to access kindergarten has led to actually a reduction in the available kindergarten spaces at some of our kindergartens here in Darebin. It's one that the policy textbooks would say is a classic kind of, whoops, I didn't see that one hiding around the corner. And it does happen from time to time when we are rolling out large and new policy programs. So I hope that this report can take into account all of the views that we've heard from the community tonight and give us some clear information that actually I kind of wish we'd asked for when we first came into the chamber and considered this in 2024. But, you know, as a more mature council, now most of us are about one more year into our term. We've had the opportunity, and I thank Councillor Boglis for bringing this to us for consideration.
Thanks, Councillor Jelly. Are there any other speakers? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank the people that did attend earlier on this evening to provide the very valuable input that they did. Although I didn't support the specific nature of singling them out in the advocacy ask, we do understand this issue is a big one. And I guess the point that Councillor Jelly made about the unintended consequences of policy is a really interesting and important one for us to consider at all of the work we do, or locally, and as we're advocating to state and federal government as well. So hopefully what we can learn in relation to this particular example helps us inform those advocacy pieces more broadly, and what we heard from participants tonight will inform that further as well. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? No. Given there's no further debate, I'll put this item to vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Okay, so we're moving back to the start of the agenda, back to 9.1 Property EOI Trench 2 update. Councillors, do you have any questions of officers? Councillor O'Brien.
My question is a broader one. So I guess, again, similar to my ask earlier, I would appreciate if officers can just give a broad view to people watching about how we need to handle this debate in terms of the complex nature of it and the confidentiality aspects, because it's going to feel really weird to people watching us speak about this, I fear. Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, is it possible to see the motion so I know if there's any questions I want to ask, because I know it's been...
Sorry, Councillor Lyris, there hasn't been a motion put on the table yet. These are just questions of officers. Okay.
Thanks. Through you, Mayor, thanks for the question. Essentially, this decision relates to an expression of interest process that Council has run to seek interest in some available properties it has. What you will see in the papers, but also what you will hear in the debate, is reference to submitters rather than organisations being named. Now, that's really important to protect the confidentiality of the privacy of those submitters. What Council does do at a later date, after the decisions are made, is it will release the name of the successful party at the right time in the process.
Are there any other questions of officers? Nope. If there's no other questions, we will commence the debate. I remind you that once we enter the debate, there will be no further questions. Do I have a mover of a motion? Councillor Sangster.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'd like the motion to appear on screen. Great.
Sorry, can that scroll a bit slower? I haven't read the top half yet.
Is that your motion, Councillor
Yes,
Sangster?
I think so.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to speak briefly to it, if that's okay.
I'll just ask for a seconder
Okay,
first.
so
Councillor O'Brien, you'd like to second? Yep. Councillor Sangster, you're welcome to speak for 3 minutes.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, I'll be speaking for about 30 seconds. I stand here today to speak very briefly and hopefully simply about the thinking behind this motion. Due to the sensitive nature of this work, I cannot be specific about why we are making the choices that we have made. I do, though, want to thank the officers for their tireless work, and it has been tireless, and to also thank everyone who put such an incredible effort into their applications. I know that there has been a lot of blood, sweat and tears that have gone into this, and people have felt the work of this and the weight of this quite deeply. So we recognise that, and we don't underestimate the cost on communities and businesses applying for these grants or these buildings. So just to finish by saying Darebin is it's a place of innovative, creative and very aware humans with a passion for making the world a better place, and I commend the motion.
Councillor O'Brien, as a seconder, do you wish to speak?
I will, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Sangster has outlined some of the key issues, and I want to be clear that I support the reasoning and the approach that we have proposed here. But as noted, given the confidential nature of the matters before us, I too cannot be as explicit as I would like, and will choose my words carefully. As a result, there'll be far less of them, which will be good for most people. But in the approach, I guess what we're working to do is give certainty to many wonderful organisations that support our community to be the best version of itself. And as mentioned, submitters will be contacted by officers in the coming days to demystify the confidential results. The elements at point 6 and 7, just to note that there is further conversation to be had there. So although it's disappointing that we don't have a specific solution to run with on everything this evening, I'm glad that conversations will continue with some of the worthy organisations that can strengthen our community further. It is essential that these discussions continue with the valued organisations that these pertain to. And although we have challenges, we should not close the door on finding workable outcomes where we know there's value. Councillors, these decisions before us are not just about leases or revenue. They are about the kind of city we want to shape, one that supports community, is values aligned and delivers key commitments including on climate action and well-being, as well as achieving thoughtful revenue growth. For those reasons, I support the motion. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Given that there's no further debate, I'll put that item to vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. I'm just going to request a 5-minute break, so if councillors would like to... Councillor O'Brien, would you like to move the procedural motion?
I'll move a motion
Thank
to
you.
we have a 5-minute break.
Councillor Villella? Wonderful. All those in favour? Thank you. We've got a 5-minute break. Councillors, are we ready to take our seat? Okay, so the next report we have to consider this evening is Darebin Domestic Animal Management Plan 2026 to 2029. Councillors, do you have any questions of the officers regarding this item? If there's no questions, I'll ask for a mover of the motion. Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like the motion that I circulated earlier to be brought up onto the screen. Thank you.
Is that your motion, Councillor Jelly?
Sorry, could we scroll up again a bit higher? Yes, that's the motion I wish to move. Thank you, Mayor.
Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Sangster. Councillor Jelly, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I'm moving this motion this evening to present an option for how we can progress towards the future vision that our community has told us that they want to see, while also respecting that there are a few steps that Council needs to take to reach that vision. The tenet of this motion is to set a date later this term, or to set an intention later this term to switch from the current nighttime cat curfew policy to a 24-hour cat containment policy, where owners are required to keep their cats on their property at all times. This is needed to protect wildlife, and it should be unsurprising that a Greens councillor is putting this forward as a proposal. Since the times of European colonisation of the lands we now call Australia, many species have been introduced that have had devastating impacts on the environment and native wildlife, including domestic cats. Ensuring that our pet cats do not add to further wildlife injuries and deaths is one action that is in the control of us at a local government level. As a proud indoor-only cat owner myself, I know that it takes additional time, effort and attention to ensure that cats live a fulfilling and enriched life indoors. In fact, as I scribbled down these notes this morning, I had one of my cats start singing for attention. Half a box of cat toys later, she wandered off to take a nap. Such is life, how wonderful she gets to live it. Cat rescue agencies now recommend indoor-only lifestyles for many cats that they put out for adoption for many reasons, including for the long-term health and well-being of the cats. Having grown up in an area with brush-tailed possums, I've seen firsthand the injuries that cats can sustain themselves when they pick a fight with brushies. Injuries from fights from other neighbourhood cats can also cause injuries, spread disease and lead to expensive vet bills. So this motion proposes a roadmap to a 24-hour cat containment that also includes some options for us to review the current cat curfew arrangements which the community have noted are not always adhered to by our residents. We've also noted that we need more community education about responsible cat ownership and consideration for support programs for low-income households who may struggle to adjust to cat containment. Such a support program might enable residents to access netting or other items that allow cats to have outdoor time in catios or cat runs that separate them from wildlife. This motion also proposes a way forward for Council to keep track of the success of this policy. And I commend this all to you all, and I hope that you can support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jelly. Are there... Oh, actually, Councillor Sangster, would you like to speak as a seconder?
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. So, Mayor and Councillors, I'm rising in support of exploring the consideration of an introduction of a 24-hour cat containment. This is not a radical leap. It's about balancing responsible pet ownership with our duty to protect native wildlife and respond to clear community expectations. The evidence is overwhelming. Across Australia, pet and feral cats kill an estimated 1.5 to 2 billion native animals every year, including hundreds of millions of birds. And studies show that even well-fed, fat and happy domestic cats hunt instinctively. In urban areas, a roaming pet cat can kill dozens of animals each year, small birds, lizards, frogs and mammals that are already under pressure from habitat loss. Here in Darebin, we are proud of our biodiversity corridors and creek systems. Species that rely on these spaces simply cannot withstand constant hunting. A 24-hour containment policy significantly reduces this impact, protecting wildlife while keeping cats safer from cars, disease and fights with other cats. Importantly, the community has spoken. During consultation, 70% of respondents supported stronger cat management measures. This is a clear majority asking us to act. This proposal is measured, it allows for education, staged implementation, and it aligns with best practice local government policy across Victoria. This amendment listens to the concerns of officers that fear that rushing into a 24-hour curfew will lead to non-compliance and failure to endorse due to lack of staffing. This amendment does not rush, but it does demonstrate ambition for ourselves and for our community to protect our biodiversity, to protect native wildlife, and to support responsible pet ownership. I just wanted to say really quickly, so I do commend this amendment to the council, but I also would like to take this opportunity to thank the officers and the team who are out there in the field for their incredible hard work. Darebin is a community that loves their pets in their many furry, feathered and finned ways. It was disappointing in the report to hear about the rise in dog attacks and the distress by some in our community about dogs off leash in lead areas, in on-lead areas, but I feel confident that this new plan will help us work together to keep our people and all our animals safe and happy.
Thank you, Councillor Sangster. Are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Laris.
I'll just be brief, I think. Yeah, obviously this is a really important plan. It's a legislated requirement of council and sets out our approach to managing domestic animals, predominantly cats and dogs, but not just. And there's many improvements in the plan, so I think it's a really great plan. But I do want to just speak very briefly to the cat curfew. So, as I think it says in the amendment, maybe on the next page, but there were 70% of residents who got engaged in the consultation who said that they supported a 24-hour cat curfew, and mostly raising concerns around wildlife. So, but there was also 54% who said they hadn't noticed a change since the nighttime curfew was put in place, and that was back in 2021. So that's the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. curfew that we currently have. And people talked about cats being out and about at night, and it's one of the top 3 behaviours that they noted in relation to cats. So, and very sadly, most people didn't trust the council could implement changes in a way that would be effective. So that's why I think this approach is a really good one. So it's one that allows us, rather than jumping to a cat curfew and going with that high proportion of people who supported it, the plan does suggest a review of the effectiveness of the current curfew to explore the feasibility, in order to explore the feasibility for the 24-hour cat curfew and how it would be implemented. It also, I guess I just want to say that I think the review is really important. So it means that we can learn from what currently is working or not working, and with the current curfew, undertake more research, more consultation, consideration of costs, all the things listed up there, and then be able to eventually, presumably, implement it in a way that is effective and successful. So thank you.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. A lot of what I would probably say has already been covered, but I am very passionate about this issue, so I do still want to speak to it. Firstly, to acknowledge that this has been a substantial and important piece of work, and again, thank the officers for all of the fantastic work that they've done, and our community, and thanking them for how strongly they've engaged. They provided clear feedback about how improving cats and dogs, the management of that can be improved for public safety, for neighbourhood amenity, and the protection of native wildlife featured strongly. As the owner of both a cat and a dog, I understand these issues firsthand. Our dog loves being off lead in the right spaces, but that freedom comes with responsibility. The people that believe they can control their dogs at all time have an amazing ability that I've seen firsthand as well, but behaviour shifts depending on environment, other dogs and people, so assuming that you're always in control can put others at risk. And our cat, who is now 15 years old as of 2 days ago, has lived fully indoors his whole life. It protects him and it protects wildlife, and it's something animals and owners can adapt to. The consultation showed strong support for 24-hour containment, as we've heard. So I'm disappointed we can't move to that immediately, but I understand some of the challenges that we're facing. Council has a way to go to get things in place to be able to build the confidence and build the processes and the team to deliver this work well. But it's not only about council action. Responsible pet ownership is a shared obligation for all of us pet parents. Dog owners need to keep dogs on lead outside designated areas and actively supervise them even when off lead. And cat owners can begin preparing for full containment, this is foreshadowing will be down the line. If we get the balance right between support, enforcement and shared responsibility, this plan can work. And I really hope we give it our best efforts as a council and a community. Thank you.
Do we have any other speakers? Given there's no other speakers, I'll put the item to vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 9.3, 2025-26 Quarter 2 Performance Report, Financial and Non-Financial, ending the 31st of December 2025. Councillors, do you have any questions of officers? No questions. I will then commence the debate. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe there was a slightly amended motion shared earlier today. This would be the one.
And Councillor Turi is seconder. Councillor O'Brien, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So again, thanking the officers for the work that goes into this report. It's very detailed. There's a lot of financial figures in there, and we're getting better each time about what we present and how we present it, and I really appreciate that we're continuing to evolve there. I did just want to briefly address items 2A and 2B in the motion, which have been slightly amended, which will help in this conversation, but also I want to touch on the customer experience performance that's outlined in the report as well. So 2 of these items for discontinuation are not work that we're stepping away from in substance, rather the intent behind them is being progressed in more appropriate and integrated ways. Our council plan commitment is to explore and identify Darebin's response to the UN Sustainable Development Goals will help us to transparently advance the social, environmental and economic priorities set out in our 4-year plan. Similarly, our new partnership with Wurundjeri and the Ballot plan we're developing with inputs from local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander residents and other key organisations will guide our work in this space and strengthen how we take the principles of self-determination and treaty and make them real at a local level. Turning to the increase of complaints referenced in the report and the link drawn to the display of the Palestinian flag, I want to address this directly. We are operating in an increasingly and complex global environment where racism, misinformation and deliberate disinformation are eroding trust and causing harm, particularly to vulnerable communities. And we must be careful not to allow these issues to be deliberately conflated by those that seek to divide us. Importantly, the increase in complaints did not just begin with the Bondi terror attack. It started earlier. I believe we saw an increase following a talkback radio segment in which a caller claimed the Palestinian flag was flying in place of the Australian flag. That claim was false. To be clear, the Australian and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander flags continue to fly at our town hall precincts in accordance with Commonwealth protocols. That has not changed. The issue was not only that the claim was incorrect, but that it was aired without fact-checking and that it circulated without correction. It fueled further outrage and prompted complaints based on misinformation. That had real consequences. Staff time was diverted to responding to demonstrably false claims, and more concerningly, staff were exposed to hostility and abuse as a result. This is how misinformation operates. It creates anger, distorts reality, and places pressure on institutions and individuals simply doing their jobs. We cannot control what is said on talkback radio or online, but we can insist on facts and we can refuse to let misinformation go unchallenged. If we are serious about building an inclusive and harmonious community that values and celebrates its diversity, then standing up to racism and standing up to disinformation must be part of that work. Thank you.
Councillor Arturi, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion? Are there any other speakers? Councillor Arturi, would you like to speak to the motion? Okay, then I'll put the item to vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. So moving on, we're on to item 9.6. And that's novation of contract, supply and haulage of bulk bins. Councillors, do you have any questions of officers? Given there's no questions, do we have a mover of a motion? Councillor Turi. And Councillor Tsalkos as the seconder. Councillor Turi, would you like to speak to the motion? Councillor Tsalkos, no speeches? Does anyone like to speak? Okay, I'll put that item to the vote, nice and easy. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on, we have 9.7, project and initiative budget adjustments. Councillors, do you have any questions of officers? No questions? Do we have a mover of the motion? Councillor Alaris? Is that the motion that you'd like to move?
That's it, thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tsalkos. Councillor Alaris, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So once again, we've got this very great report that we're all big fans of, where we get to see the money that's coming in and out of the project areas. But today I want to speak up to this particular version of the motion that I've put up there, which, as you will see, does include an allocation of $200,000 as a contribution to the Aboriginal Women and Girls Sport and Wellness Centre. This to be funded out of our favourable end-of-year cash result from 24-25. This fantastic initiative is the first of its kind. It's to be delivered through a partnership of the Fitzroy Stars and the Aboriginal Advancement League, with project management being led by Development Victoria. At its heart, the centre aims to build confidence, skills and leadership for Aboriginal women and girls, as well as supporting their ability to realise their potential both within and outside of the sporting arena. It's proposed to be built at the Sir Douglas Nichols Sporting Complex. So this is a multi-million-dollar project, massive project, with funding coming predominantly from the state and federal governments. We were approached last year to contribute $200,000 to ensure that they were able to meet their budget and meet the project needs. At that time, we considered this in our budget processes and we were unable to find that money, but we made a resolution for the CEO to find at least $100,000 in this coming year, and to look perhaps for the next $100,000 the following year. Our situation has changed a bit in that we have had a surplus last year, so it's really good. It's fortunate that we are in this position to be able to get that money to them as soon as possible, or committed to them as soon as possible, and allow them to, leaving this fund flexible for other operating projects that might need adjustments made. And it also means that we can assure the Fitzroy Stars and Aboriginal Advancement League of the coming commitment, and so that they can progress this really important and exciting project. It's the first of its kind. And just for those who might be concerned, advice from the finance team is that this will not result in any material change to Council's end-of-year results. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Laris. Councillor Tsalkos, would you like to speak to the motion as the seconder?
Thanks, Mayor, and I will keep it brief. As we all know, our Darebin plan has 4 pillars, and one of those pillars is collaborative, transparent and responsible, and that's exactly what this report does, councillors. We're being very transparent in where our capital works and operating projects are and where the money is being spent, even if it's a little bit higher, but a little bit lower. It makes it very transparent for our community to understand what's happening, and also gives us the ability to do great things like support the allocation of $200,000 to the Aboriginal Women and Girls Sports and Wellness Centre. So, yeah, hope everyone can vote for it.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers to the motion? Given there's no other speakers, I'll put the item to vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Next up, we have the governance report as the last agenda item for our reports. Does any councillor have any questions for the officers? No, given there's no questions, I'll request a mover of the motion, Councillor Boglis. Is this the motion that you'd like to move? Can we keep scrolling? Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Sorry, through the chair, just before we move any further with this item, I forgot to just restate the declaration of conflict that I made at the start of the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Boglis, is that your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Great. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Laris? Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Boglis?
Yes, please. Thank you, Mayor. Through you. Our governance report this month is a lengthy one with many items, but I will choose to speak explicitly to one of importance to us as a council when we speak to advocacy at the upcoming ALGA conference that is happening in Canberra later this year, of which some councillors here in the room have added their motions to. So I'd like to move the governance report and the associated ALGA motions calling for increased resourcing, specifically mine that speaks to health and wellbeing across all councils, and I'm sure our other councillors here tonight may speak to their additions. Local government is on the front line of community wellbeing, and every day our services intersect with residents experiencing mental health, distress, housing instability, family violence, isolation and crisis. Yet councillors are not funded as mental health providers, despite increasingly carrying that responsibility. The motion that I'm bringing to ALGA, if council supports that this evening, recognises a simple truth. Mental health is not separate from local government work. It shows up in our customer service centres, our libraries, our maternal child health, youth services, community safety and aged care. And our staff are responding to complex needs without consistent, dedicated funding streams to support that work. So through ALGA, we are seeking as a council for the Commonwealth to recognise local government as a critical partner in the mental health system and to provide sustainable funding to embed mental health and wellbeing responses across councils nationally. This is about prevention. It's about early intervention. It's about equipping local government with the resources to respond safely and effectively. And as a council, we see this impact every day. We cannot continue to absorb increasing demands without structural support. And I just also want to note on the side, this morning between 10 and 1 p.m, I was very proud to attend the Health and Wellbeing Forum, of which service providers across our municipality attended, quite passionately driven to work together to speak to the needs, inclusive of homelessness and the data that we know exists around that early intervention space. So I urge councillors to support this motion and advocate for proper resourcing so that our local governments can play its role in strengthening mental health and wellbeing across Australia.
Councillor Laris, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yep, thank you. The governance report, as usual, is jam-packed full of interesting things. So, this month, for example, we've got our response to the Monitor's report. We've got a change of date for our June meeting people might be interested in, as well as many other things. And I'm similarly to Councillor Boglis, want to talk a little bit about the motion I put forward that's in the papers for the Australian Local Government ALGA National General Assembly meeting in Canberra. So this is a national gathering of local governments who then vote on motions, which is, if successful, then inform the Australian Local Government Association's advocacy to the federal government. So there's a few steps for these to go yet, but so if the motion that I have put forward calls on the Australian Government to provide information, resources and funding to Aboriginal community-controlled organisations, to traditional owner groups, as well as to local governments. And the purpose of it is to accelerate their ability to commit to the Closing the Gap national agreement. So this is something that councils to date have not been very engaged in, and not for want. So this will very much help make that happen if it's successful. It's got to focus on formalising partnerships and shared decision making, and we are very proud here at Darebin to have a partnership agreement with our traditional owner groups or Wurundjeri people, but we were the first council to do this, so it's a very uncommon thing. But also we've got lots more partnerships we can be working to develop with Aboriginal community controlled organisations. So, and just a note to explain, this motion was also given the endorsement of our Darebin Aboriginal Darebin Aboriginal Advisory Committee, and I worked with Lisa Briggs, who's the Executive Director, and I hope I get this right, Nagawi and Maru, which is Closing the Gap partnership in developing it. So thank you.
Are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm speaking in support of this expansive governance report tonight, and I want to focus on two elements. Firstly, our response to the Monitor's recommendations. And I note the Monitor's report was long overdue, without any explanation from the Minister for its delay. We and the community deserve transparency about why that was. I'm concerned that some of the recommendations in the Monitor's report go beyond the terms of reference, while others need more work. I hope we can promote this report to the community better than the government has itself. But my main focus this evening is to draw your attention to the 3 active transport motions in the report that I am putting forward for your endorsement to ALGA's National Assembly in June. The first of these motions calls for increased federal investment in active transport that is proportional to what is spent on transport infrastructure and also preventative health. Right now, safe walking and cycling is seriously underfunded, especially when compared with the $3 billion being sunk into tackling road congestion, which will in fact do very little to help people access more sustainable transport options. The evidence of the public health benefits of walking and cycling is plentiful. There is also growing evidence that large light trucks and oversized utes cause more severe injuries and higher rates of death in crashes involving people who are walking or riding. These vehicles are so big that drivers can't see an 8-year-old child standing right in front of them, and yet they are not subject to the same testing standards as passenger vehicles. We urgently need these truckzillas to undergo the same level of safety testing as sedans and hatchbacks so that families understand the full risk before purchasing them. And the third active transport motion calls on the federal government to make it easier for people who ride to work and school through salary sacrifice options and ongoing funding for councils to deliver safe cycling infrastructure and also reliable data collection to support council decision making on active transport. And down 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Okay, I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Moving on to item 10, items to be tabled. Tonight there are no items to be tabled. Next we have item 11, notices of motion. First we're going to consider 11.1, advisory committee focused on health and wellbeing. Councillor Boglis, do you wish to move your motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Is that your motion on the screen, Councillor Boglis?
Yes, it is.
Yep, and Councillor Villella is seconding. Councillor Boglis, you may wish to speak to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you. This motion ensures that following the advisory committee review, Darebin will have a dedicated health and wellbeing advisory committee. It will provide strategic advice, guide service planning, inform advocacy and ensure the voices from the February 2026 Wellbeing Forum that was held today shape the council action. And that means we're also gathering narrative data from our service users and those inclusive of municipality. What we know is health and wellbeing needs in Darebin are not new. They are urgent and ongoing. Over 30% of our residents are carers, most of them women and unpaid. Nearly 30% experience loneliness well before mental health challenges, and more than 1,000 people are experiencing loneliness or couch surfing in Darebin today. These realities demand early intervention and not a reactive response. So for the first time, Darebin Council will have a clear strategic mechanism to support prevention, early intervention, social prescription and community wellbeing. This is essential work, it's not optional and it's long overdue. Thank you.
Councillor Valala is the seconder. Would you like to speak to the motion? Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Laris.
Thank you. So, councillors, you probably know I've worked for a few decades in the health and health promotion sector. And I was also, along with Councillor Boggles, thrilled today to attend Darebin's first Health and Wellbeing Forum, which brought together organisations from across the municipality to consider a shared way forward in this important priority area. Like Councillor Boggles, I am passionate about Council's legislated role to improve, protect and promote the health and wellbeing of our community. And I'm sure that's something that is true of all councillors. I know it was all of us who endorsed our council plan, so and it's one of its key pillars. So I'm excited next month that we're going to be receiving a full report on the review of the new advisory committee structure. I'm happy to support Councillor Boggles' motion today, particularly in recognition of her commitment to our community's health and wellbeing, and particularly to mental health. And I think that shines through in this motion. The motion makes probably one important impact, and I draw you to point 4. Which ensures that the soon-to-be launched Wellbeing Forum, this one will focus on mental health and bring together local organisations and people with lived and living experience, will provide input into the Health and Wellbeing Advisory Committee, should such a committee be recommended. So, as I said, really looking forward to receiving the report next month on our advisory committee review, and where we will all get a chance to make changes we think are important. But in the meanwhile, I commend the motion to the chamber.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Turi.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I also rise to speak in favour of the motion, but I don't want to add to what Councillor Boggles and Councillor Alaris have said, save to clarify that I guess the motion here doesn't endorse any committee, but I guess it notes hypothetically what a future endorsed committee might look like and what its role might be, which is great. Like Councillor Lara said, I too look forward to the more detailed report where we can make a more wholesome and fulsome decision in relation to the advisory committees going forward. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? I'll put the item to vote then. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Moving on, we're on to Your Street, Your Say Group A Projects Update on Progress, item 11.3. Councillor Boggles, do you wish to move the motion?
Yes, please, Mayor. Thank you.
And do we have a seconder? Councillor Valala. Councillor Boggles, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, please. And yes, the final for the evening. Mayors and councillors, this motion relates to the Your Street, Your Say Group A projects. Council has previously received updates on these projects, including design progress and any funding secured. These projects have been long awaited since 2022, when I first raised the Your Street, Your Say Group A as a priority in response to feedback from residents. They have repeatedly asked about the status of these projects. And recently, as some of you may know, on Gilbert Road during the holiday period, we had a car that rolled on the side of Gilbert Road by a shopping strip during the Christmas holidays, highlighting the ongoing safety issues on Gilbert, Henty and Gilbert and Edwards. Some of these projects are still awaiting progress and TAC funding and acknowledgement and installation of safer pedestrian crossings and wombat crossing programs. The roundabouts are crumbling and residents, including parents with prams, school children and cyclists, continue to face real safety concerns when crossing or navigating these roads, and I continue to hear from them. So I want to sincerely thank my neighbours for their ongoing questions and tireless advocacy, which have been central to keeping attention on the much anticipated pulse of the Your Street, Your Say Group A to completion. This motion requests a report from officers to clarify the costs to progress these projects in 2026, the outcomes of all the funding applications, including TAC funding and any rolled over grants, and whether these projects will automatically carry over into the upcoming budget or request resubmission. Receiving this information will allow the residents of the West Ward and surrounding Your Street, Your Say Group A residents who are continually seeking updates for long-awaited projects. We need to deliver these safety improvements and address the ongoing concerns our residents have been sharing with us over many years now. Thank you.
Councillor Villela, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, just very briefly, through you, Mayor. Look, I think this is worthy of support because it's basically asking for information regarding where the public's monies is going, has gone. It's information that's really important for us to have more meaningful deliberations with the upcoming budget. So as a new councillor, I'm really interested to know. I'm still getting my head around the whole Group A, Group B, Group C structure. So I welcome any information that will shed light on it. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Jelly.
Thank you, Mayor. Sounds like it's just started bucketing down out there. I am broadly supportive of this motion, given that it's calling in part for budget information that I called for in December in an amendment that was lost. However, it's a new meeting, it's a new motion, and I'm pleased to see that there's been some reconsideration of that suggestion now. But I do want to raise some concerns that Your Street, Your Say as a whole program is quite behind on its promised timeline. It's not just Group A that's quite behind, Group C is also very delayed. And the more that this program drags out, the less convinced I am of its strategic alignment to our priorities. That's not to say it's not doing good work. It has been delivering positive results for our community. But there is a reason why we've seen repeated calls for the same transport and traffic interventions in the last 5 to 8 years, and that's because residents feel that council is not delivering on their expectations. So something needs to change here. We need to consider the primary reason also why residents are telling us to hurry up and deliver these transport projects. And that is because road congestion is getting worse and road safety is declining. There are many factors influencing these issues, but in a climate where population growth in Darebin and Melbourne more broadly is outpacing the rate of investment in affordable and sustainable transport, we must call out the failure of the state government to deliver on its promises for better public transport services and safer, connected cycling and walking networks, and we must do what we can to accelerate our delivery of transport projects that have already been endorsed by council. I also have concerns that no, I do not have any further concerns. I have outlined all of my concerns. Thank you, councillors. I hope we can endorse this motion.
And are there any other speakers to this motion? Councillor Turi.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be supporting the motion. I just want to note a couple of things, sort of, as Councillor Jelly did support the motion, but just note a couple of things. It does confuse me ever so slightly that we keep hearing references to the same projects. Despite the fact that as recently as tonight to a public question, in answer to a public question, we heard that a lot of those projects, in particular along Gilbert Road, are already funded in terms of design, black spot funding, etc. But nevertheless, my understanding is that transport projects more broadly will be considered by councillors through briefing and workshop processes, and I look forward to that. And we're going to get an update on these anyway, so I'm happy to support the motion as a result. But it is a bit strange that we're only bringing a particular set back to the chamber by way of a report. It doesn't particularly make sense to me, but like I said, I'll support it. I'd also like to make the point that projects in one geographical area are not particularly more important or not particularly more community driven than others across the city. And as Councillor Jelly pointed out, Group A is more broader, a lot broader than just one ward. And councillors, we need to remember our legislative responsibility that basically outside of elections, wards don't exist for all intents and purposes. So I think we can remember that when we have this discussion going forward. So I hope the councillors take the information that we're requesting in the way that it is strategically ought to be, and that is in the broader context of transport projects across our city as we take a strategic lens and not a geographical one. Thanks, Mayor.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Councillors, can I ask for a procedural motion to extend the council meeting time? Councillor O'Brien. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Arturi. I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Okay, moving on, we're on to item 11.4, anti-racism against First Nations people. Councillor Sangster, do you wish to move your motion?
Yes, I would like to move my motion. Thank you, Mayor. My nom.
Is that your motion?
Yes. Yep.
Did you want to request leave of the chair to amend your current motion? Oh, yeah, right. Yep, no worries. Do we have a seconder for this motion?
It's awkward.
Councillor Jelly. Councillor Sangster, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Thank you. Councillors, this is a simple motion. It asks us to do what we say we stand for when we acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples, the traditional owners and custodians of the land we now call Darebin. That acknowledgement means more than just symbolism. It means truth-telling and solidarity. Across Australia, we are seeing a rise in racism and far-right extremism. We've seen attacks and intimidation directed at Camp Sovereignty in 2025. We've seen the terrorist attack at the Perth Invasion Day rally on the 26th of January 2026, an attack involving a suspected homemade explosive targeting Aboriginal people who were gathered in grief to tell stories of truth and survival. And as Senator Lydia Thorpe said, the trauma of that day, the day the bomb was thrown, was met with something familiar. Silence, another form of violence. There was silence in the media newsrooms, there was silence in the ministerial offices, there was no emergency press conference on that day. That silence matters. Delays in calling racism what it is matter. Delays compound harm. Delays and silence send a message about whose safety is urgent and whose pain can wait. Last year, our council had to respond to a protest linked to the extreme right National Socialist Network at our Northlands. And our former mayor, Christina Laris, said this council is vehemently opposing all forms of discrimination in the community. This motion gives substance to those words. It notes the increasing incident of racism. It expresses concern about the protracted period before the Perth attack was declared terrorism. It acknowledges the limited and delayed response from state and federal governments, and it reaffirms our commitment to genuine partnership, truth-telling and self-determination. It also calls for action, writing to the Victorian Premier and the Prime Minister to seek an update on the implementation of the National Anti-Racism Framework, a 10-year roadmap developed after 5 years of consultation and containing more than 60 ready recommendations. Darebin has a strong record. We have chosen not to host citizenship ceremonies on the 26th of January. We host Ganbugulin. We've led with principle before. This motion doesn't overreach. It simply says to First Peoples, we see you and we recognise that racism and hatred directed at you are real and rising. Your safety matters, your trauma matters, your leadership matters. And in times of escalating hate, clarity is courage and silence is not neutral. I urge councillors to support this motion.
Councillor Jelly, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'll reserve my right. Thank you, Mayor.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor Olaris.
I'd like to seek leave of the chair to propose an amendment, change to that motion for Councillor Sangster to consider.
No worries. Have you your amendment on the screen?
No, it's not. Yep, thank you.
Is that the correct wording?
Yep.
Is that?
That's it.
Yep, wonderful. Would you like to speak to your motion? Oh, do we have a seconder, actually, for the amendment? Oh, is it approved by the mover and the seconder? Sorry. Yes? Oh, excellent. So, Councillor Laris, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yep, was there a seconder?
Yeah, it's been approved by the mover and the seconder, so it's been accepted.
All right, thank you. Thank you to Councillor Sangster for raising this motion and for your words just now. I think it's fair to say that. Well, I hope it's fair to say that this does represent our shared concerns about the increasing incidence of racism, of hate and discrimination and extremist views across Australia, including, of course, as this motion is focused on the targeting of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, such as that deeply disturbing attack in Perth on Invasion Day on Jan 26, 2026. Most of you will be aware, though, that whenever we get emotional like this, I always feel like we need to be doing a bit more. And so I have added this additional bit to this motion, which asks us to consider what we're currently doing. To rather than always looking to other levels of government to see what they can be doing, to also be looking at ourselves. What is it that we're currently doing to combat racism and to combat division in our community? What more could we be doing? And I ask that we consider this as a part of our planning and budget processes that we're doing at the moment for the coming year, but also for the remainder of this term. So thank you, Councillor Sangster, for accepting that change to the motion, and that's all. Thank you.
Are there, Councillor O'Brien, you'd like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to thank Councillor Sangster for bringing this one to us and honing our attention in particular to our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities and some of the terrible acts that have been perpetuated on them recently and the re-traumatisation for many of them that they've experienced and that they've expressed. It's not something that we should or do take lightly. So it's good to see it crystallised here again, and with the addition to action in point 6. I just wanted to reflect that there are some similarities, unfortunately, in this and another notice of motion that I brought back in last September. That had a broader focus on our multicultural communities, but also talked about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and issues facing them all. Some of them we've touched on again tonight: misinformation, disinformation. We can't underestimate what is happening in our communities and the effect that it's happening. And although I agree with Councillor Olaris that we do want to look at what we're doing ourselves, and my NOM called for similar at the time, and I think there was a discussion around strengthening that at the time as well. A number of councillors came together on that, which was great. But we do have a state government and we do have a federal government that have responsibility in this place and in this space. And there are reports and recommendations, and we need to take them seriously. We need to move on them, and we need to fund the work across councils as the people who are closest to the communities that are affected. It makes sense to work collaboratively, and I hope we can do that. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? I'll put that item to the vote then. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Our next item on the agenda, which is our final notice of motion, is 11.5, protecting our community's support for Vic Health. Councillor Jelly, do you want to move the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to see my motion on the screen. Make sure I'm wearing the right glasses to see that. Yes, that's my motion that I'd like to move. Thank you, Mayor.
And do we have a seconder, Councillor Villala? Councillor Jelly, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, very deeply and passionately I do. Thank you, Mayor. Vic Health is the most effective public health agency that you've never heard of. It has worked extensively with local councils over decades, recognising the important role of that local governments play in improving physical and mental health outcomes in the community. We should all be very concerned about the proposal to embed Vic Health within the Department of Health, as was recommended in the Silver Review. And I remind you that that review was one that was commissioned by the government itself. The issue here is independence, which has been core to Vic Health's success. Vic Health has called out very powerful industry bodies that are profiting off ill health, tobacco, gambling, alcohol, fast food industries, all wield influence in the halls of government. We need public agencies to retain their autonomy and keep speaking up for the health and well-being of our communities. Now, I'll declare here, I used to work for Vic Health. I'd never heard of them beforehand, and I never understood what population health was, but I learned much more about the connection between health and inequality than I had ever imagined I could learn in just one 6-month contract. Ill health is the driver of inequality. Racism is a driver of poor mental health among Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and migrants. Violence against women is the leading cause of death for women aged 24 to 45. These are all facts that we have learned through the research and impact of Vic Health's work. These are all topics that Vic Health conducts independent research into, including researching the effectiveness of community interventions to reverse declining health trends. Local government is one of Vic Health's most important partners in delivering those interventions, which is why it is our duty to call out the proposed changes to Vic Health. This is not just a question of how this merger will affect grant funding opportunities for Darebin. It's about how real opportunities for change could be missed because of ministerial direction to not pursue a line of investigation and intervention. And this is not about the current government or the current minister. We have to think about how a future government and a future minister might silence an important issue that affects the well-being of Darebin residents who are doing it tough. Vic Health has been and is now a very important partner for Darebin. It delivers programs on inclusive sports initiatives, developing climate resilience in our community, and work to prevent violence against women, something which disproportionately affects Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women each and every day. If bold programs like these are scaled down in the future, our community will miss out. All Victorian communities will miss out. Vic Health is one of our greatest defences fighting against inequality. So let's stand together to preserve that.
Councillor Villala, as the seconder, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you very much so. Through you, Mayor, I want to sincerely thank Councillor Jelly for bringing forward this notice of motion. I recall when this matter was announced that Vic Health was going to as an entity no longer exist, but kind of be swallowed up by some bureaucracy somewhere with an office. But the most important thing is the independence, as Councillor Jelly outlined and described the function of Vic Health really well. I think what's ironic is that we've spent a lot of time tonight talking about health well-being in the community, a committee, and we had the forum today, and we realise how important health and well-being is in our community. And at the same time, Vic Health is going to disappear. I just think it's really ironic that that's happening. And I recall experts in the field of psychiatry and social work and mental health generally were up in arms when the state government made this announcement. It was in the papers for like 2 weeks. All these experts came out because it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. It's an affront to the people of Victoria, and then it puts more burden on council because we see every day the impact of diminishing investment in this area. We need to step in. Well, we feel we have to step in, and we should step in because we have a moral obligation to our community. We see it. And so it's really heartbreaking. I was devastated. So, therefore, I'm really, really pleased to support this notice of motion. It probably, the state government might not even read it, but I think it's important for us to send a strong message that this is really important and should be preserved. Thank you.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you. I just want to add a couple of things in relation to, the potential impact of the Silver report that this motion is relating to in terms of specifically Vic Health. There are other incredible organisations who are impacted by this pathway at the moment. So Sustainability Victoria, who I used to work for many years ago and who has a community of amazing people doing amazing work to bring communities along on the sustainability journey, on climate change, on waste management, on circular economy, all things that we're passionate about and that we want to see. Vic Health and its mandate, also super important to our communities, has been outlined by a few people. Creative writing has been affected. There are so many things that touch so many parts of our lives that are on the chopping block at the moment, and it's really troubling because we're making these decisions because we're trying to make up budget, and we know what that's like. On a much smaller scale here at council, it is really hard to get it right. But cutting these things, where you're getting such huge value for money, as outlined in point 3, in terms of what you're investing and what you get out of it, just doesn't make sense to me. And I don't know that there's an answer. I don't know that this is going to be pulled back, but I have hope that it's possible because this institution matters. Vic Health is important to our communities, and we should be supporting it to stay independent. Thank you.
Are there any further speakers? Councillor Boglis.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And I just want to commend all the women here who have spoken to the need to maintain Vic Health and the integrity of what it does. I too have worked in the industry for over 20 years, and one of those roles over a long period of time was managing a non-for-profit, whereby funding and supporting local programs to include health outcomes, including grants around health promotion and disease prevention for young people and families in Braybrook, and teaching them what healthy food was, and teaching them about early prevention with their health. This is all part of Vic Health's role. Evidence, research and advocacy. They generate data on the health challenges and influence that policy. As Councillor Jelly was saying, around alcohol harm, tobacco and healthy food environments. Partnering with local government is what Vic Health does. It is all about embedding health promotion into local planning and capacity building. So I absolutely commend this to the chambers, and I thank everybody for their words tonight.
Are there any other speakers to the motion? Nope, I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. The next item on the agenda is urgent business. There are no urgent business items to consider this evening. We will now move on to item 13, considerations of reports considered confidentials. Councillors, there is one confidential report to be considered this evening, and that's 13.1 Digital Darebin Procurement Decision. In accordance with Section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020, Council may resolve to close the meeting to members of the public to consider the item designated confidential in accordance with Section 3(1) of the Act. Council. Oh, thanks, Councillor Turi. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tsalkos. I'll put that item to the vote. All those in favour? I declare that motion carried unanimously. Thank you to members of the community who have joined us this evening and to those who have tuned in via the live stream. Please note the live stream will not resume after the confidential meeting has concluded. Before I declare the meeting closed to the public, I would like to wish you all a lovely evening. Thank you for joining us again today. I now declare the meeting closed at 9:13 p.m. and request officers to cease the live streaming and recording. Councillors, before we move on, please give officers a moment to ensure that the live streaming and Zoom recording has ceased and that staff and all members of the public have left the chamber.